My name is Sri Pranav. I'm from Guntur, Andhra Pradesh. Recently secured Air 60 in this civil service examination. So this is my fourth attempt. I was able to clear this attempt. I was able to clear this examination in the fourth attempt. For the first three attempts, I was not able to clear mains. So this year, fortunately, this was my first interview, and I was fortunate enough to get into the list. So yeah, I was asked to take a session on mains answer rating because for the mains aspirants as well as for the freshers as well, because it forms the core of the examination, because that's what decides our rank. At the same time, the diversity of the examination is quite well represented in the mains examination. So the session is structured in a way such that I was asked to talk about my strategy for all the 4 papers, and also how I plan my schedule and my revisions. At the same time, what it took to maintain the focus and positivity. So I'll not try to waste your time. I'll not try to create some boredom for you guys. I know it's 11 o'clock. So let's start. Let's start with GS1. Before that, I hope you guys are having syllabus paper with you. Basically, to attempt mains, there are 4 steps that you need to do. One is to have a proper clarification, proper sorting down of your syllabus. Secondly, you need to get the resources such that you can cover this syllabus quickly with better cost-benefit ratio. Thirdly, you need to make sure that you build proper notes for this. So you start reading the syllabus, based on that you get your resources, then you build notes, then you revise it. These are the 4 components. I think if you fill down all these 4 components, essentially it will lead to your answer writing. So make sure that you have better clarification of your syllabus. We'll start with GS1. For all the papers, we'll make sure that we tick all these boxes. So we'll find out like what is that really this paper demands. What is that we need to put on the paper such that we could fetch those 4.5 or 4 out of 10 marks and 7.5 or 7 out of 15 marks. Essentially, for the last 2 to 3 years, the toppers par scores are around 105 to 115 in GS1 and GS2. So these are the papers that require quickness, because questions are becoming lengthy day by day. At the same time, the scope of the questions becoming bounces. For example, the deviation from the normal routine questions is becoming more. So we can start. So if you see, as it is classified, you have almost three components in this: art and culture and history. I would say don't put them both in silos. Art and culture and history, both of them together form a similar subject. Then you have world history. So all the topic 1, 2, 3, 4, they form a single set of the syllabus. Then you have Indian society, which is altogether a different subject. And you have the next geography, the physical geography, human geography, and geological phenomena. So we divide the syllabus into 3 parts: society, geography, and history. So this GS1 requires 4 main things that we need to inculcate in our answers. The constant things that we need to inculcate, which can give us that extra half mark as compared to other aspirants. Firstly, maps and diagrams. Your answer should have some pictographic essence, because you'll be asked questions on geography. For example, last year there was a question on rubber cultivation, distribution of rubber across the world. So if you see here in human economic geography, you have this component, distribution of key natural resources across the world. So you might be asked about rubber, someday you might be asked about palm, or else about steel, or else about gold, including South Asian Indian subcontinent. So for those kind of questions, if there's no diagram, for example, if there's no map, then the idea might not be conveyed essentially. If you draw a diagram that fits half of the paper, then half of your job is done. Also see, for actors responsible for location of primary, secondary, tertiary sector industries. For example, if they might ask you a question about Indian cotton, then you need to draw an Indian map and show cotton. Or else iron and steel industry in India, you need to show the iron and steel corridors, the eastern sector or the southern part of India, which are rich in the iron bearing regions. So these add that, that 1 mark or half mark to your answer. Then secondly, examples. You have Indian society where questions will be based on your contemporary issues. For that, you need to cite good examples. So you need to have a better reserve of contemporary as well as many historic examples, such that you can cite them when and wherever required. For example, if there's a question on there's a question on work from home last year, like how does work from home impact the families? You can write an example, a most contemporary emerging example called moonlighting. So because of the work from home, there's this extra time that these employees are getting, so they're investing on additional jobs, which is adding to that pressure on their work-life balance. It is impacting their personal relationships. So that will give you an half mark advantage over others, something like that. Thirdly, diversity in answers. So questions on geography or questions on history, it requires diversity, the number of things that you bring onto the table. For example, if a question is asked on society, you need to cite religious factors, you need to cite cultural factors, you need to cite political factors. For example, if there's a question on custodial debts, or if there's a question on what to say, or any other social issues, you need to cite examples like what are the administrative factors leading to this issue, social factors leading to the issue. For example, for custodial debts, there are many social factors. For example, the equation of caste plays a key role in many custodial debts, so such that the victims are mostly concentrated in one part of the society. So those kind of things, you need to cite them. So you need to bring diversity in answers. And fourthly, you need to have strong definitions in this part. So for example, if there are some questions on geography, they might ask you about some phenomena or some features. For example, last year there's a question on isthmus, straits, or else on society they might ask you about globalization in different contexts. So you need to have those proper definitions such that you use them as per the context. For example, if there's a question on globalization, which is linked to, this year there's a question on how can globalization be used to face resource shortage. In that context, you cannot use globalization is the intermingling of different cultures. No. You need to use globalization as per the context of emerging technologies. For example, globalization, resource shortage. So to deal with resource shortage, we need technical interdependence, for which globalization is a main factor. Globalization is making sure that different countries are working together. For example, we are having an agreement with USA called ISET. We also have agreement with European Unions. We have an agreement on green technologies with Sweden. This is nothing but these are offshoots of globalization. So you need to use globalization in that context. For example, if globalization is used in such a context on culture, for example, how does globalization impact Indian culture? Then you need to use globalization in that context. You cannot use the like the technologies, all those things, you cannot use it here. So make sure that you have this structured definitions for in multiple dimensions. So I'll show, like rather than talk, I'll try to show you some of my answers, how I used to structure. Before that, I would also talk about your art and culture as well. See, when art and culture has that, what do you say, the pictographic dimension. For example, if there's a question on cave architecture, rock cut architecture, write short notes on rock cut architecture in the ancient India. You cannot just write the features of the rock cut architecture. If you draw a diagram, if you draw an Indian map, and highlight those places where prominent rock cut architecture is there, that will give you an half mark. That's what I used to do. For example, if the question on in the history, if there's a question on Dandi March or civil disobedience movement, if you go through, if you read modern history, you'll know that the sound. So if you read Dandi March, you'll see that there are multiple satyagrahas. There's Scale-Uppan Satyagraha, there's this Vedaranyam Satyagraha, there's Satyagrahas across different places. So if you highlight those places and write there and there itself, that will give the impression to the readers such that that we are trying to present it in a better way. Also, world history, we quite have kind of neglect it, but make sure that you have basic understanding. You go through the previous year questions, because every year max to max, there's one question that is being asked or two questions. Last year, there's not even a single question that has been asked. So, world history, make sure that you read prominent events in world history, like Industrial Revolution, French Revolution, German Revolution, Russian Revolution, Italian Unification Movement, Iranian Revolution, Cold War, United Nations. So make sure that you read, you have a proper PYQ understanding. See what are the questions they are asking. Because sometimes it's not that important to invest so much in world history. So rather than focusing on world history, you can have that extra focus on the society part. Because some 60 to 70 marks is coming from society. Also make sure that you read your art and culture, link that to the history. So when a question is asked on art and culture, you need to cite the history as well. For example, in 2020 October, there is this question on medieval Persian literature. So medieval Persian literature has emerged during the time of Delhi Sultanate. So you need to cite Amir Khusro. So Amir Khusro, you need to cite Sufism. You need to cite many books under Mughals like Akbar, who has encouraged many great writers like Abdul Qadir Badauni or Abul Fazl. You need to cite them. So you need to have that historic knowledge as well. Don't strictly see art and culture as art and culture, but link that to your history part. Because without linking to the history, art and culture is like that. It sounds like an orphan. So make sure that you link your art and culture with history. So when you are reading, for example, if you are reading Mauryan age, also read Mauryan art and architecture, because the philosophy, each and art and culture of every era has a philosophy that is being reflected in these kingdoms. For example, if you read Guptas, they strongly follow Vaishnavism. So that even the temple architecture quite a kind of reflects it. For example, if you see Shunga art and architecture, during Shunga time it was more of rock cut architecture which promoted Shaivism or such things. If you see Akbar is a secular person. So his architecture reflected both the Buddhist elements, the Hindu elements, at the same time the Indo-Persian architecture as well. So you need to have that convenient understanding. And make sure that you don't neglect history part, because ancient and medieval, we think that we need not read a lot, but 1 year some 50 marks has come from art and culture and ancient and medieval. Last year it is around 20. So maybe we might not know. So make sure that you give that equal priority to each and every subject. So I'll try to show some of my answers. Questions, Spike. So this is my first question, like various archaeological evidences paint a rich picture of social, economic and religious life of Harappan people. So basically now we'll start how we should address answers. So the question is, there are some archaeological evidences of Harappa. That thing we know. We are reading ancient history. We know many sites like Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Kalibangan, Lothal, Satkenjadaro, right? So if you see each and every archaeologist, they try to analyze these evidences from different parts, different point of views, because they give insights about how people lived at that point of time, be it the vessels they used or the burial patterns or else the housing patterns. So they give you an idea of what that society, what religion they followed, those kind of things. For example, a Pashupati Mahadeva seal talks about a religious practice, or else a mother goddess, mother earth seal shows that they're quite close to the nature, or else some seals from the Mesopotamian civilization shows that there's some linkages. So this is the question. So the socio-religious cultural life of the Harappans, you need to analyze it through the evidences. So this is my intro. Make sure that you give an introduction to the question based on the context asked. So here the context is archaeological evidences, socio-religious and cultural life. So I have linked that to that pottery, coins and structures. So provides deep insights on the socio-economic life of Harappans as seen through the potteries, coins and structures. So for example, the necropolis structure of the Harappan, the citadels of the Dholavira, you have 3 layers of citadels. That shows that there is proper hierarchy in the society. So coins, for example, terracotta coins are used by lower people, like the copper coins are used by the upper class. Pottery, pottery shows how the civilization has transitioned. At the end of the later ends, it was the north black NBPW pottery that was used. So, see, economic life, external. So make sure that now, while writing your answers, in the first strike itself, make sure that you're conveying the idea. Rather than giving a big sentence, make sure that you write the theme and highlight it such that in the first sentence itself your idea is getting conveyed. So he did not put that extra effort to read the whole sentence and comprehend it. That will eat his time and he'll not see the examples you have cited. But here, as I've told you, our examples is what gives us mark. So what I'm trying to do is I'm making his job easier. So external trade contacts of Indus Valley, that's it. The idea is getting conveyed. It's a proper bullet point. Presence of Mesopotamian coins. Hindon, Meluha terms on inscriptions. There are some inscriptions which tell Meluha. Meluha means India. Hindon, India. Meluha means cotton. Sindhan. You can find these terms in your R.S. Sharma, old NCRT. Then strong agro-based economy. Harappan cultivation has strongly cultivated, it's strongly agro-based. So you have granaries in Harappa. If you read your books, you might see evidences of threshing being done on floors of Kalibangan. Also evidences of plough in Kalibangan. There are some evidences of plough being found. Rice husk being found in Lothal. Then the third point, development of metallurgy, especially in copper and bronze. So that strongly run on metallurgy civilizations. Strong ports as seen in Lothal. So you know that Harappan cultivation had ports like Lothal. So that shows that the economy of the Harappan civilization is quite diverse. It had agriculture, it had metallurgy, it had ports, it had proper external trade relations. So you can identify that the economic life is getting highlighted in those 4 points. So I've tried to convey as much as I can. In the social life, I have the presence of the class distinctions. The classes being the elite class, the aristocratic class, the working class, the clergy, the slave class or the lower people. So how can you tell that? How can you tell that it was there? Through a proper evidence that we have. What is that evidence? The Dholavira, there are 3 structured citadels. In each and every Harappan society, there is this either 2 or 3 structured citadels being constructed. Then matriarchal societies, social life. I have highlighted the class part of the society. Now I'm highlighting that family part of the society. I think anthropology students can understand this, social and anthropology students. So matriarchal societies. So we can, there are some evidences saying that Harappan societies might be matriarchal, where the role of women in the family is important. So you can see that Mother Earth, the dancing doll of Mohenjo-daro, it highlights that the women are being given importance in those societies. So in those 2 points, I've tried to highlight about the family, at the same time the class of the society. Then the religious life. You can see the worship of nature. So these people, they have worshipped the nature. So in those 3 words, I have highlighted it. And give an example, animal worship. There are rhino seals. There are unicorn seals. Then presence of devotion towards Proto-Shiva, Shiva. So there's this Shiva worship. It's called Proto-Shiva, so through Pasupati Mahadeva seal. Then you have religious gatherings. There's this Mohenjo-daro Great Bath, which shows that there are kind of some religious gatherings. They might be there. That's it. My answer is done. It provides great evidence. You need to end your answer. Give a reasonable summary of your answer. Evidence shows that Harappans had a sophisticated civilization. Sophisticated means they had a proper social life, religious life, cultural life, and family life. So this is my answer. I think you've got it right. There are more and more examples. You can cite more and more examples. So for this, make sure that while reading prelims itself, your notes should also have that knowledge for mains. So all these things are facts that we use in prelims. So for ancient, medieval and modern history, if your prelims preparation is good, then automatically your mains preparation will also be good. Don't read them just for the sake of prelims and just memorize the facts or by heart the facts and leave it after prelims. No. Make sure that you have them in your mind even after prelims. So while preparing itself, you have that context in your mind. Second question, sir. So this question, contradicting the doomsayers of idea of India as a nation, India has expected a successful experiment in democracy. This is nothing but post-independence history. Sometimes questions in post-independence history are framed in such a way that you might not know exactly this has come from so and so point. So I've started this. The intro is Winston Churchill once had told that India is not an organic nation. It is a structure. It is a mix of multiple nations with multiple cultures. So the future might not support India to stay as a nation. This was his dire prognosis. This was his prediction for India. But we have proved him wrong. That was my intro. So see, if you see the question, contradicting the doomsayers. So those doomsayers like Winston Churchill, we were able to contradict them. So immediately once I've read that, this thing popped up in my mind. So you also make sure that try to bring multiple things while you write an answer. So register whatever you have read regarding those things. So the opinion of doomsayers. So the question is contradicting the doomsayers. So what were the doomsayers saying? That we need to write. Then we can contradict, when we can show them that we have contradicted them by examples. So I've told them, I've written opinion of doomsayers, heterogeneity of society. That is the biggest thing that these people are telling, that India cannot, the reason for which India cannot stay together, because society is heterogeneous. There are multiple cultures, multiple religions intersecting each and every one. So these multiple identities might not let India to survive as a nation. That is one point they have told. Then mutual antagonism between castes and religions. So British have played this divide and rule policies. Also there are conventionally our society has this caste issue. So this is mutual antagonism that has been prevailing from ages. So this might not support India as a nation. Then large scale geographical diversity. So you have a geographical diversity, like you have Northeast, you have Kashmir, you have Southern India. So this large scale geographic diversity, at the same time the geographical extent might not promote effective governance, which might lead to breakdown of the system. For example, if you see the integrity of the nation is being challenged nowadays, like in the Northeast, the demand for Nagalim, or the secessionism in Punjab, or in Kashmir insurgency. So it requires a lot to govern all these areas, because there is this geographical diversity. So these are the opinions of doomsayers. Now we are contradicting them, contradicting the word of doomsayers. So I have written, however, India proved it wrong. So try to introduce your dimension by a 1-line or 2-line sentences. In this answer, I have made sure that one is the ray diagram part, such that this pictorial essence is getting conveyed. The second component is my main component. We have proved them wrong through constitutional pluralism. We have built ourselves a great constitution such that it could accommodate pluralistic identities. It could give minorities rights. It could give people fundamental rights. There are certain duties for the government to do. So it effectively accommodates constitutional pluralism. So you have rights of minorities, special provisions for SC/ST. Then you have federal polity. I have written there, geographical diversity, it is difficult to govern. So to counter that, you have federal polity. So you have state governments, you have union government. So such that the governance, and you have also local governments. So the governance is spread to the bottommost layer, such that the geographical diversity and the geographical extent is covered, right? So that thing I have countered through this. And thirdly, promotion of national identity. So it is being said that this is heterogeneous cultures, there is this mutual antagonism. What should we do to counter it? Integrity. We need to promote integrity. So integrity means the identity of the nation through culture, sports, art. We have this thing called Ek Bharat Shreshth Bharat. Now we have Azadi Ka Amrutotsav, or else Run for Unity, Statue of Unity. All these things highlight that unity and integrity element of our nation. Then you have unifying features. There are certain unifying features, only the identity of India is reverberated. You have single currency, you have an army, single army, you have single citizenship, you have national elections. So these activities make sure that all of us belong to one nation. Down. But in the conclusion, I made sure that, however, still we need to strive against the growing majoritarianism, class inequalities, caste distinctions, which are threats to democracy. This was my conclusion. Sometimes you can effectively summarize the answer, or else sometimes you can just give another opinion to the answer and end it, or else you can give a way forward. So in this thing, I didn't get that scope to give way forward. So what I have done is I made sure that I have given an alternative opinion. So, second question. So again, if I reiterate the question, contradicting the doomsayers of idea of India as a nation, India has exhibited a successful experiment. So I have highlighted the doomsayers. What did the doomsayers say? What was their opinion that India cannot stay as a nation? And I have contradicted them by giving proper examples that we have done right from independence. At the same time, I also told that still there are some threats to democracy which we need to face. I think you got it. So try to break your answer into multiple dimensions. So growth of Indian national movement was both a response to and a reason for changes in British policy in country. So British policy had many U-turns, had many wrong ways in how they have governed the country. So how these policies have changed, our national movement also made sure that it was also changing as per the change in British policies. So the changing British policies was the reason for our national movement changing. At the same time, the response to these policies was also our national movements getting changed. So it's a response, at the same time a reason. So I've just started Indian national movement rightly changed its course corresponding to the policies of British. The course of the national movement has changed in such a way. For example, initially we were fighting for those constitutional reforms. If you see the moderates, they were fighting for constitutional reforms. Eventually, once they were getting suppressed, it went to Swadeshi movement. Then slowly it went to Home Rule movement. We are demanding for dominion. Then Swaraj. Then slowly it went to Quit India movement. There are some drastic draconian laws like Vernacular Press Act 1878. So where the press freedom was curtailed. So our response was through violence in some ways, through militant struggles through some ways. So response to changes in British policy. So first I am highlighting the response dimension of the answer. Fighting against carrot stick policies that deprived India of their rights. So British largely followed this carrot and stick, where they were giving carrot to reward us, at the same time they are having a stick to hit us. So if you see a donkey has a carrot between it, so as it sees carrot, it goes for it. So the owner constantly keeps the carrot a distance from the eyes of the donkey such that it will walk for it. At the same time, it will also hit him. So for example, after the Home Rule League movement, there's this Montague declaration saying that we will be given responsible government. But at the same time, there was this element of diarchy. So that's carrot and stick. He's rewarding us with responsible government, but he's still saying that there's diarchy at one level. So that is wrong. So I've written that fight against carrot and stick policies that deprive Indians of the right. Same, to promote liberty, equality of Indians. Response. So we fought against Arms Act, Vernacular Press Act. This came under Lytton, Lord Lytton. Then struggle against economic exploitation of British. British economic policies were also an exploitation. So we had Dandi March. So different elements in our Indian national movement were certainly a response to the policies of the British. Our Swadeshi movement was a response to draconian acts of Curzon's partition of Bengal. Our Dandi March is in response to the economic exploitation of salt by British. Our Home Rule League was the demand against the Morley Minto reforms. Then question the unilateral policies that promoted anti-partition movements against Bengal partition in 1905. Then there's reason. So promotion of response. So then slowly, then the British policies were also responding to our movement. So when we started Home Rule League, Edward Montague came down and told that we will give you a responsible government through Montfort reforms of 1919. Then Government of India Act 1858. Till 1857 revolt, we were fighting to make sure that Indians were not there in the governance. So 1858 made sure that for the first time Indians were used in the Legislative Council. Power transfer through cabinet mission. After the Quit India movement, it was made sure that the cabinet mission was formed. So thus the national movement and the British policies evolved together. This is my answer. So you can go to the sixth question. Okay. So here the question is, caste system is nothing but a salient feature of Indian society. If you go to the syllabus part, you have salient features of Indian society. Means caste, family, diversity of India. These are basic salient features. So here the question is, caste system is becoming dynamic. The changes are becoming more. So after the independence, highlight those changes in the caste system. This is what the question is. So started like, I have defined caste system. What caste system really is? Caste system is nothing but a system of social stratification. Social stratification based on a hierarchy, principles of endogamy, commensality. Commensality means common, there's no scope for interdining. Leading to the notions of purity and pollution. Nothing but caste system promotes a social stratification which are based on principles of endogamy, means the marriage within the same community only. Commensality means common dining. It has a hierarchy which is properly based on the principles of purity and pollution. So this is the flexibility which is impacting the caste society. So the caste system is becoming flexible nowadays. What are those? Why it is happening? Influx of modernism. We've got great educational values. There's this growing global values that is getting into our Indian homes. Use of digital technologies, rise of social media. So it is silently erasing the caste identities. That is my answer. Influx of modernism, greater education and employment, forces of urbanization, globalization. So these forces has certainly led to erasure of those caste lines, which has started to change in those caste system. Now I am flowing to that part. What has led to those changes and what are those changes? Reduction in caste from independence. So answer is since independence. So you need to have a proper chronological order. If in question if there's like since independence or since 1990s, make sure that you have a chronology. Use the chronology, use the theme and link it. So here my theme is changes in caste system. I have a chronology from 1950s to 2010s. So I'll link them both. So if you see the 1950s, the biggest reform, the socio-economic reform that India has taken is land reforms. So through land reforms, also we had a constitution that we have built in 1949. It also had some rights. Like we have given affirmative action through reservations. So reduction in caste-based inequalities and better mobility through land reforms and affirmative action, which is nothing but reservations. Then reduced relevance of caste system due to LPG reforms of 1991. From 50s have come to 1991. So you have this LPG reforms which has led to that promotion of industrialization, rise of corporate sector. So in the corporate sector, slowly the caste lines became changed. No, two colleagues can just talk about work and just interact with them. So the caste equation has gone down. And thirdly, the growth of metros. So the rise of metro cities had led to anonymity in caste identity. So in villages, in rural areas, the caste identity was pronounced a lot. But in the urban areas, it was less. Then the same time there were some negative changes as well. Rise of politicization of castes. In 70s, 80s, there are caste-based parties that have started, which have banked on that caste vote bank. So you rise of politicization of castes. Then there's this manifestation of caste identity. The caste identity has started coming into the mainstream movements, like you have Dalit capitalism by Prabanchan Chud, Dalit feminism. These things are there. Then you have greater integration of various castes through intercaste marriages by growth of modern education. So through modern education, there is growing intercaste marriages. So there is greater integration of castes. But I've again told that yes, it is changing. There's this flexibility that's happening, but still, caste system is also reason for many evils in the society. That is my conclusion. Like manual scavenging. So you have this being prevailing in this areas of Rajasthan or Tamil Nadu. That's nothing but manifestation of caste differences. What all you can see in manual scavenging is nothing but the differences being created by caste system. Then you have Kap panchayats. You have many Kap panchayats in the rural areas. That's nothing but the caste identities that are being pronounced at the larger scale. Honor killings, you know about it. Jajmani system, bonded labor or caste-based people being hired for doing some work without proper wages. So that is my answer. I have highlighted the positive part, the negative part. The positive part I have given a chronological sequence. But at the end, I told that still it is also prevailing in such things. It's not fully changed. It is being still pronounced in the society. This is how you need to write your social answers, society answers. So you link, globalization is another component. It's not a part of society, but you're linking that to the globalization part. You're linking that to the land reforms part. So that is what you need to bring. As I've told you, diversity in the answers, examples in the society, strong definitions, the caste system definition that which I have given. So we'll go to the 8th question. Why does Western Ghat receive more rainfall than Eastern Ghat? How does rainfall variation impact the vegetation and human activities in the region? Basic geography question. If you read NCERTs properly, you'll get your answers. So basically, to answer this question, the main question is rainfall variation in Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats. To write that answer, you need to have that physical, the differences of the terrain in Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats. Based on that, you link that to rainfall and answer it. So I have given a basic introduction. My answers. Western Ghats. Firstly, the southwest monsoon branch is quite it's quite close to the Western Ghats. It hits the Western Ghats first, then the bifurcation starts and it will go to the Eastern Ghats. So it's proximus to the southwest monsoon. Whereas Eastern Ghats they have less exposure to southwest, because the time the southwest monsoons goes to the eastern part of the country, the moisture runs off. The moisture runs off. The winds get dry. So that's why they face less rainfall. But southwest monsoon are quite close to the close to the Western Ghats. Secondly, closer to the coasts. Western coasts are submerged. The coastline is submerged coastline, but the eastern coastline is emergent coastline. That's why you find many beaches in the eastern coast of the India. For example, Vizag or Odisha, they are famous for beaches. But if you see western coast the beaches are quite less, because it's a submerged coastline. The Western Ghats are submerged into the Arabian Sea, so it is closer to coasts, but it is farther from the coast because of the emergent coastlines. And thirdly, Western Ghats are taller, because the average height is around 2,500 meters. For Eastern Ghats, around 1,600, 700 meters. You have many peaks in the Western Ghats, like Kalasubai, Lake Orels, Doddabetta. But Eastern Ghats are not that high. So the taller the hills, the stronger is the orographic effect. If you read NCRTs, you'll get to know the term orographic effect. The lifting capacity of the clouds, such that the more condensation happens, the greater the capacity of the cloud increases. That leads to cloud bursts of the rainfall. So here it is less in height. So thus having the low orographic effect. You have for rainfall, there are two phenomena that you know. There's one is the conventional rainfall, which starts with low pressure. Second is the orographic phenomena. Fourth, this is continuous chains of mountains. So Western Ghats is continuous. So as there is continuous, the rising is also continuous. So the rainfall is intense. But Eastern Ghats, you have gaps in the Eastern Ghats. So these gaps, they basically break the moisture. So that's why the rainfall is a bit irregular there. Then vegetation. So I also highlighted the vegetation part. Evergreen vegetation. In the Western Ghats, it's evergreen vegetation. So that's why the conventional rainfall scope is more. Same, but in the Eastern Ghats, it's semi-evergreen. So that's why the rainfall is more over here. So how does it impact the vegetation activities in the region? So vegetation activity in the sense, the economic activities, the human life, the cultivation, the flora and fauna. How does this rainfall impact them? So the high rainfall in the Western Ghats promotes evergreen vegetation. So wherever there is evergreen vegetation, there are laterite soils. Laterite soils happens because of intense rainfall. So you have greater than 200 millimeters of rainfall. Then you have rise of plantation economy. So in these regions, like Western Ghats or Eastern Ghats you have coffee cultivation, tea cultivation. Even in the Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats, both the Ghats, you have this plantation culture. Why? Plantation economy basically runs on that high rainfall, because you need greater amount of moisture to cultivate tea, coffee or rubber. So you have rise of plantation economy. Then there is this presence of tribal livelihoods. In the region, the human life is more tribal based because of the forests. So you have todas, chenchus, like that. Then the growth of tourism, the economic activities. So this greater rainfall promotes that ecotourism aspect. So that the economy is basically tourism based. In this question, I was not able to give a conclusion, but at the end of the day, you can just give a conclusion, saying these are quite vulnerable to climate change. We need to take more steps. Just throw them a torch of what we need to do in the future. So I'll cover one more 15 markers, then we can go to GS2. Kinda. Yeah. 18th question. Account for variations in ocean temperature and discuss its multidimensional effects. Nothing but again basic NCRT question. Ocean temperature, this is horizontal variation, vertical variation. So this is what I have done. Oceanic temperature variations can be categorized into vertical distribution and horizontal distribution across globe, having multiple dimensional effects on hydrosphere and atmosphere. Basically, ocean is that bridge between hydrosphere and the atmosphere. So all the oceanic phenomena that happens impacts the hydrosphere, at the same time the atmosphere. So I've talked, these are not rocket science points. These are basic points that you can find in your NCERT books. So horizontal variations means we'll go through the horizontal map. Oceans in northern hemisphere have a higher temperature as compared to southern hemisphere. That is a basic point, because the land water distribution is quite skewed. In northern area the land is more, the ocean part is less. So this can lead to that land sea variations. So oceans are not those, that's why it has higher temperature, because land, there's high pressure on land, low pressure on ocean. So the pressure differences are more. That's why the temperature rises more. So there's large amount of land in north. Then this latitudinal variation means the insolation. For example, oceans in equatorial and tropics, they're quite, we being a like the high insolation is there. Like equator regions and tropic regions, the insolation amount is quite high. So that's why these oceans are a bit warm. Whereas in oceans in poles are frozen largely due to deficit insolation. You have this insolation deficit surplus in your first chapter of NCERTs. So the polar regions have deficit insolation, the tropical and equatorial regions have surplus insolation. So that's why Arctic oceans or Antarctic oceans are largely frozen. Oceans on the west coast of the, no, I'm giving the other variation of the distribution. West coast of the continents are cool due to influence of cold currents, whereas they are warm on the east coast. I've also given the example. Benguela current is the African west coast, it is cold. Mozambique current, so east coast, it is warm. Horizontal variation. So I've given horizontal variation across the continent and same across the latitudes. This is the vertical distribution. Means in the ocean. If you see, you might have read about this, right? Thermocline. So decline in the temperature. So as the depth increases, the temperature reduces. After thermocline, it's a steep fall. Also, the surface temperature is greater than temperature of deep oceans, because salinity plays a key role. So increase in salinity leads to decline of temperature. Okay. So this is my, I have given a horizontal variation, the vertical variation. So the distribution part is done. Now I'm talking about multidimensional effects. How does this variation in oceanic temperatures have many effects? One of the effects is, these are again your NCERTs, but in different chapters. So as that, make sure that while you read these chapters, have this perspective of interlinking multiple things. So if you read one chapter from ocean, one from atmosphere, if a question is asked, you need to use points from both the chapters and write that in the answer. So facilitates the flow of currents. Basic phenomena for currents moving is the oceanic temperature differences. So facilitates the flow of currents, ensuring the global exchange of heat. Ocean currents make sure that this is global exchange of heat. So basically currents flow when there is gradient. So when the ocean temperature rises, the ocean temperature expands. So a gradient is formed as a current flows down the gradient. That is one reason. So the ocean temperature is literally leading to the flow of currents. That is one geographical effect. Then you have salinity of the oceans. So as the temperature increases, salinity also increases. So warm waters on increasing salinity submerge at poles. For example, as the water is warm, when it reaches poles, temperature gets down, salinity increases. For example, Atlantic drift. It goes from the north, across the North Atlantic Ocean. That is also driven by temperature. Then oceanic temperature variation can be used to generate energy. The temperature differences through OTEC energy, we get that energy. So that is one economic effect of it. Then you have marine biodiversity. Temperature changes influence biodiversity as well. So coral reefs, kelp forests, migration breeding of organisms. So that is my multidimensional effect. I have covered the geographical part of it, the physiological phenomena part of it, the economy part of it, the ecological part of it. So that's why I told you, diversity in the answers. You need to highlight multiple themes. So I think I have highlighted all the themes, right? Let's reiterate, maps and diagrams. So in this I have a diagram. Example society. I have given many examples in society and history as well. Diversity in the answers. This question, multidimensional effects. Strong definitions. The caste system definition that I have given. So I've specifically asked these questions because these themes are getting highlighted in those answers. So with this we'll wrap GS 1. Yeah, am I boring? Like it's getting 12. You guys are getting hungry, right? Okay, just bear with me for more half an hour to 45 minutes. We'll finish this. I'm open to your questions. GS2. So as I've told you, we have 4 teams for GS1, right? Now for GS2 also we'll have 4 teams. One is proper idea of constitution. From polity. Give any question, you need to have proper idea of which article does this belong. Your polity answers should highlight the articles. Proper idea of constitution. Secondly, reports. There are certain government reports, bills. For example, the Law Commission report or the second ARC report. So they are used in your governance and polity answers. So for each and every answer, you need to have some context or some idea of any point in any report that can be used in this answer. For example, there's this growing interreligious marriages, communal marriages. So for that, there are some law commission reports which have given some model laws, suggested model laws. For example, Rajasthan government has come with certain law promoting security for people in this interreligious marriages, giving them safe house, safe custody, appointing a nodal officer, something like that. Or else, if you write about governance, if you write something about citizen charter, you need to highlight something from second ARC. So proper idea of reports, bills. Thirdly, verdicts. Supreme Court judgments, at the same time the High Court judgments. There are some prominent judgments. Don't write them separately. Don't create separate silos for it. Make sure that the content you are building, they should highlight all these things. The cases part, the reports part, the articles part. For example, if I have a topic on custodial deaths. Custodial deaths is nothing but your dignity is getting violated. You are being killed in the jails. So what does this violate? It violates your Article 22. Article 20, Article 21. So you write these articles. Then you have many cases like DK Basu versus the state of West Bengal. There is some case like that. You need to highlight that case. Also there are some verdicts like, I don't remember, there's some United Kingdom verdict, Lord Denning's case, or else there's this Mudgal principles to fight custodial deaths. So these are cases. If you go to the internet or if you search, so in my custodial deaths notes I have built, I have some reports. There's Law Commission report, like what to do to face this custodial deaths. Some 147th Law Commission report, something. Articles, cases. Okay. The fourth thing is strong terms. You need to use certain vocabulary to highlight your answers. Terms like constitutional morality, constitutionalism, principles of natural justice, rule of law, something like this. Also, there are some doctrines as well. So you need to use them. You need to use these answers to make sure that you face. For example, once there was a question on federalism, like the union and state fighting, something like that. So there is this doctrine called doctrine of federal supremacy. In the doctrine of federal supremacy, whenever there is a fight between the center and the state, the immediate priority, if the issue is so much, the immediate priority should be given to the union. Also, there is this doctrine called doctrine of harmonious construction. So whenever two principles of a law are conflicting, so two laws are conflicting, two principles are conflicting, you will give priority to that principle which realizes this constitution in a more better way. So you need to use these words. For this, you need to have proper reading of your Lakshmikant. You need to have proper search in the internet. For example, there's this site called iBlog Pleaders. iBlog Pleaders. iBlog Pleaders, if I'm not wrong. Pleaders or leaders? iBlog Pleaders. So anyhow, if you're researching on some topic, along with Lakshmikant, you also search that topic in the internet. Type the topic, put UPSC, and if you search it, you'll get many websites. Be patient and get that content. You'll get like many better words like this. So basically these four things. So again, your strong terms are also used in your international relations. For example, Panchsheel, those strong vocabulary terms like Panchsheel, rules-based order, global order. These are the terms that you need to use at constant frequency. If you see, again, the first question, doctrine of essentiality. I've told you, right? Doctrines. So doctrine of essentiality is nothing but whether the court can question so and so religious practice is essential to the religion or not. The Shabarimala thing or the Namas thing or all these questions, there are some cases, some articles linked to it. So every person has a fundamental right to entertain such religious practice as approved by his or conscience. We have right to conscience. So right to freedom and religion, right to freedom of religion and conscience. So we have that fundamental right under article, sorry, which article is that? Yeah, 25, yeah. So that is sometimes in opposite to that doctrine of essentiality. Sometimes that religious practice violates the principles of constitution, sometimes. So then the court steps in and asks whether this practice is essential or not. When the court is asking whether this practice is essential or not, the religious groups are opposing it. So this is where this constitutional question is coming down. So I have first written, yes, our constitution promotes for freedom of religion, practicing religion as per the conscience. So Article 25 of Indian Constitution grants individual right to practice religion freely, respecting the conscience of individual. Why? Why does the Constitution promotes? Ensure the spiritual development of the person. Respects the secularism principle and religious liberty of the nation. This is there. But sometimes such autonomy of practice of the religion. Yes, Constitution is giving us a right to practice. But sometimes that autonomy is going over the board, which this is our customary morality. This customary morality is intersecting with the constitutional morality, which is nothing but constitutional principles. Where is it? Why is it happening? So, violation of constitutional morality. So, some examples like for the Dawoodi Bohra community or so and so communities, there are some practices which are being questioned by the judge courts that it is violating constitutional morality. Occasionally violates the rights of individuals. Such practices are also violating the rights of individuals as highlighted in the Shabarimala case. So, these things are happening. That's why this doctrine is put by the court. Doctrine of essentiality is set up by courts to question integrity and morality of the practice. Yes, it is put, but till it is restricted in the autonomy of the religion. Again, this essentiality, when the court comes and questions why your practice is essential to the religion, that is questioning the religious rights of the people. So, violates the individual's rights. Interference of the state in religious matters. Lack of court's competency to question the essentiality of practice. Basically, the court, it is alleged that the court might not have the competency to question the religion. For example, in the Shabarimala case, you might see many debates where it might say that the court might not have the idea of scriptures or about the idea of the deity, the celibacy of the deity. So, however, it is needed to promote, this is my last answer, however, it is needed to promote the constitutional morality and realize the ideals of liberty, equality, justice. I am just summarizing the answer. So, basically, you are telling that yes, we have the freedom of conscience, but it is violating to so and so. That's why Supreme Court has come up with this. But still, this is leading to so and so. 3 dimensions. So in that thing, I have I have highlighted the doctrine part. I have highlighted the article. Third question. Fourth question. So 10th schedule, nothing but anti-defection law. So the intent of the 10th schedule, the intent behind the 10th schedule, the impact of it is getting diverged. That is the question. Again, I have started with the constitutional part. 52nd constitutional amendment passed, paved way for addition of 10th schedule, which is nothing but anti-defection law to preserve sanctity of representational democracy. Words, I told you, right? Use of words. Nothing but representational democracy is we are voting for so and so person and he belongs to so and so party. This is the representational democracy. But the so and so person leaves so and so party and goes to other party. The value of a vote is getting diluted. So the sanctity, the value of the democracy is getting diluted. To save that, we have got this. This is the idea that I have conveyed in my introduction. So what is that intent behind the rise of the 10th schedule? Prevent political corruption and horse trading. So as long, if this law is not there, you can see some Ayaram, Gayaram culture, they will tell, right? You will see some guys going to this point. So party, there's no regulation for that. So this is political corruption and horse trading. Secondly, democratic realignments of parties by mergers. This law also has a positive intent. One is to stop the corruption. Secondly, it also promotes mergers. For example, if there's two parties are there, if they think that these both are fighting for a common cause, they might gel together. That is being promoted by the 10th schedule. So democratic realignment of the parties. Stability of body politic. Again, keyword, body politic. It's nothing but the state, the governance, the stability. So if there's no defection law, you can see governments falling each and every day. The stability to the governance is being given by the 10th schedule. Augment people's trust in democracy. As I've told you, sanctity of the democracy is getting diluted. So people's trust is coming down. To protect the people's trust, you have got this 10th schedule. Constitutional recognition. So for the first time, 10th schedule has given that constitutional recognition. The constitution also recognizes the role of political parties in democracy. Till then, no literature in the constitution is talking about political parties. For the first time, this anti-defection law is talking about the political parties. However, the impact largely diverges from the intent. Now, the intent is getting diverged. The partisan role of speaker. Yeah, speaker's role is quite disputed in dealing with these cases. Pike. Legitimized wholesale defections. This is the impact that is getting diverged from the intent. Wholesale defections have started now. You have seen many states for the last 4 or 5 years. Wholesale defections have started through mergers. Then issuance of whips. And this is a negative intent that's happening. Because of the 10th schedule, it tells that if someone toes against the party line, the whips can be issued. Now, because of this fear, the MPs are like, they were not talking about their conscience, as per their conscience. Even though if it goes against conscience, they're not able to talk about it. For example, if their own party comes with a law which these guys have problem with, they're not able to raise that issue in the parliament, or else it will lead to issuance of whips. So these are my 3 issues. Okay, so I've highlighted the keywords part of it, the strong terms. Now, way forward. I'm giving a way forward. What to do? National Committee to Review the Working of the Constitution. Justice Venkatachalai Commission. You have that in your Lakshmikant as well. It has told that you need to have an independent tribunal to try these cases. Because I've told you, right, partisan role of speaker. So now you need to have an independent tribunal. So I've written one of the committee recommendations. Whips to be issued only during no confidence. So Dinesh Goswami committee, what he told is, issue whips only during substantive parts like no confidence. But during normal discussions, don't issue whips. Make sure that MPs participate freely in the discussion. Thirdly, this is Hakim Ali committee. He told that if the defection has happened, ban them from the parties as well. Not just from the ministries or the elections, from the parties as well. That is Hakim Ali committee. So if you see now, I have highlighted cases in some question, reports, articles, stronger terms. So make sure that you highlight these 4 things in each and every answer of yours. Here you can see development process and the development industry. The role of NGOs, SHGs. Make sure that's why I've told you, syllabus. Have syllabus with you. Identify each and every keyword and know what they are. Build proper notes for them. So you have development process and the development industry. The role of NGOs, SHGs and various groups in the governance. This is what the question really is. Question back. Sustainable alliance between NGOs and state is critical for social change and development. The state and NGOs, they need to work together to reach certain goals. That is the statement that is given. Highlighting hurdles in this development alliance suggests some remedial measures. So 10 mark question, 3 dimensions. One is there is some partnership between NGOs and the state, but there are some hurdles in this. Give a way forward to deal with these hurdles. This is what the question is. So my introduction is through good governance. Basically, good governance has some principles like consensus, effectiveness, responsiveness, participativeness. So the participative component of good governance, where the government is allowing people to participate, the civil society to participate in the governance. So in that, A part of it is good governance is realized only when there is a principle of participatory governance involving NGOs and states. I'm nothing but elaborating that statement such that it becomes one dimension of my answer, such that it can lead to better service delivery. When NGOs and states work together, the service delivery is improved. Akshay Patra, NGO. Akshay Patra is serving midday meals in many regions. Bottom-up governance, better service delivery, bottom-up governance. For example, there is this NGO called Disha, which is taking social audits. You know social audits, right? Social audits. So they'll know the effectiveness of the scheme. Promotes inputs to states. Some NGOs are working like think tanks, which will give input to states for better governance. So one, in service delivery, it is participating well. Secondly, it is leading to bottom-up governance. From the bottom, the governance is improving. Thirdly, it is giving the advisory support as well. For example, you have this BNHS, Bombay Natural History Society. It gives many ecological inputs. It does a bird watch survey. It talks about lake ecosystems. So the government involves them in many schemes. Also, it acts as a pressure group. In the governance, it is also acting as a pressure group, like NGO Pradham promotes education, annual survey of education report, something, ACR report. Then you have Annapurna Mahila Mandal, NGO that is working for women empowerment. Okay, so there are some hurdles in this participation. One is the accreditation. The certification of NGOs is poor in India. That is one point. You will get it in many reports that you read. Restriction of finances. You have FCR Act, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, which is restricting the foreign finances of these NGOs. Then you have opaqueness in governance, like RTA. Government is not responding to RTA requests. It is having this Official Secrets Act. So the information disclosure is quite less to these NGOs. That is one hurdle. Then capacity building of NGOs. These NGOs, they don't have proper infrastructure, proper office spaces, proper human resource support. So that's why they're not working well. Then this is trust issues between state and NGOs over certain laws, protests, all these things. So that's why I've come with remedial measures. So my way forward is remedial measures. So I'm not concluding. I'm giving. He told me to suggest some way forward. So my way forward itself is the dimension. I'm not wasting my space. First, implementation of there's this policy called National Voluntary Policy, which is still not being implemented. It has many better things like identifying the common partnerships between NGOs and states, creating platforms, promoting independence of financing of NGOs. There are some points in that National Voluntary Policy, National Guidelines for Voluntary Sector. So that thing I have highlighted. Policies, I've told you earlier. Keywords, policies, then reforms of FCRA Act. Reform the FCRA such that it promotes the financial autonomy to them. Then outsourcing service delivery to NGOs. So government can come out of certain service delivery things and give that to NGOs to serve it. So these are my remedies. This is the classic governance question that has been asked. This year also there has been a question like greater dependency between the foreign aid organizations and the domestic organizations has led to dilution in the participation of communities. For example, so and so communities will try to give them aid, right? So in that process, we are not involving them. We are just giving money. We are only controlling the process of development. So the question is, what should be done to involve these communities? Those people who are taking, they also should be involved in this development process. This is the question. Then I will talk about 215 markers, one international relations thing and one polity thing. Yeah. Here's the question. BRICS has a potential, international relations, right? We have syllabus, sir, fast. India in its neighborhood relations. So India, Nepal, Bhutan, Pakistan, China, Sri Lanka, all that in the region. Then bilateral, regional, global groupings and agreements involving India and affecting India's interests. Means all those groups to which India is part of, they might be asked. For example, you have agreement called the Middle East Quad. India, Israel, UAE and UK, if I'm not wrong. So that might be asked. How does it affect the global order? Or else BRICS, SCO, JEI, Japan, America, India, all this. So you need to have proper notes for those groups as well. What is this group? What are the interests behind this group? What are the issues in this group? So BRICS, there are some issues. In SCO, there are some issues. What are the aims of this group? What are the impacts of this group? So you need to have a notes for all these things. So here, BRICS has a potential to lead the path towards reformed multilateralism, but suffer from numerous internal contradictions. Discussed in the light of recently concluded 14th BRICS Summit. So you have 3 dimensions. One is the potential of BRICS that can promote multilateralism, because nowadays multilateralism is getting diluted. There's this breakdown of United Nations. There's this growing protectionism. USA, UK, they are trying to dominate the world order. So the multilateralism is on the downside. So BRICS has the potential to reform the multilateralism, because you have many developing nations, Brazil, Russia, India, all these are developing economies. But it also has internal contradictions within the organization. You discuss this in the light of the recent summit, BRICS summit. That recent BRICS summit, I don't think I have highlighted that in my answer, but I'll talk about that, how I have written in those two dimensions. And international relations, the prelims to mains gap, that is very much important, because for the last 3 years, most immediate examples have been asked in the examination. For example, in 2021, October 2021, there was this AUKUS deal. November 2021, AUKUS Quad deal has happened. Immediately after 2 months, the question has come. So this is what I wrote. If you don't know the answer, have this ability to bluff in a reasonable way. So definitely each and every summit that India has will definitely have some closing comments on multilateralism. We'll try to promote peaceful global order. We'll try to promote multilateralism. These words are constantly iterated at each and every summit. So even though I don't have idea about that 14th BRICS summit, I'll write in this way. Recently concluded a virtual BRICS summit aimed at promoting multilateralism as well as common goal of shared prosperity. Keywords: shared prosperity. But however, it has also exposed the recent summit, but that thing I am aware in the newspapers that some contradictions have been highlighted in that recent summit. Yeah. So how does this promote reformed multilateralism? What is that reformed multilateral? How does this promote BRICS? Firstly, it promotes global south-to-south cooperation. You have north-south inequalities, right? So this BRICS promotes south-south cooperation. Means Brazil, India, it has promotes cooperation. Russia and China will work for the global south. So this is global south-to-south cooperation, which is an aspect of multilateralism. Then joint cooperation against COVID-19, terrorism and climate change. These are the biggest global evils present now. To fight these global evils, you need global action, for which multilateralism is important, for which BRICS is very much important. So you have proper BRICS tracks for climate change, terrorism, all these things. Then rallies for United Nations reforms. So these BRICS nations can come together and rally together for United Nations reforms. Promotes interests of all the member nations. So and so member nations have certain interests. The BRICS part, this is a generic point which I have written to fill the space. Now, what did it do? How is it promoting multilateralism? It has new development bank, NDB. It promotes aid rather than giving dependency. It doesn't create dependency. It makes sure that the nations that it is giving aid, it is involving them in the participation as well. New development bank. Then it has shared partnerships on agriculture, digital revolution. BRICS has certain agreements on digital revolution, agriculture. Then you have BRICS contingency reserve funds. So in case if the nations are going through economic volatilities, fiscal crisis, this BRICS contingency reserve fund will come. So these are nothing but shared cooperation, global cooperation. These are the elements of it. So you need to be aware of those sophisticated things that are happening in these organizations. For example, if there's a question on Shanghai Cooperation, SCO. So you can write about the RATS organization of SCO, which will fight terrorism, regional action terrorism strategy. So you need to highlight those key parts. But there are some internal contradictions as well. Rise of China, that is an obvious point. China and India antagonism is sometimes hurting the BRICS interests. Rise of China-India antagonism leading to poor consensus on issues such as terrorism. Recently, the 14th summit that has been happened, no proper declaration on terrorism has come out. Intentions of China and Russia to expand BRICS into BRICS Plus. So China and Russia is trying to involve more nations to make it BRICS Plus, which is being opposed by India sometimes. Thirdly, there has been no proper consensus on Ukraine war. No declaration has been given out on Ukraine war at that point of time. Now I'm not aware, but lacks of consensus on Ukraine war among member nations. Because India has taken a neutral stand, China is supporting Russia on this. So then decline in Indo-Russia partnership. With growing Chinese proximity to Russia, Indo-Russia partnership has been declining in this BRICS thing. Then lack of concrete steps taking in developing NDB. New Development Bank, they have created it. but no solid steps have been taken to scale up the organization. For example, China's proposal to increase its vote share. China told that it wants to increase its vote share in that NDB thing, which is being opposed by India. Also, Chinese debt policies are being being opposed by South Africa and India. So China's debt policies are China's this debt trap diplomacy. They call it wolf diplomacy or debt trap diplomacy. So it uses debt to conquer, to influence the nations. So it has more footprint in the regions of Latin America, at the same time in the regions of Africa. So in these regions, Brazil and South Africa are quite opposing China's debt policies. So this conclusion. So there are literal conclusion of issue of security in the region, funding of NDB, expanding membership, Ukraine war, as seen in the recent summit. This is how I ended the answer. Right? So make sure that strong terms, shared prosperity, reformed multilateralism, global order. For example, in this question you can write debt trap diplomacy. Okay? Something like that. So you need to have this proper vocabulary, build a proper vocabulary for these words such that you use them in your answers frequently. So this is GS2. I think I'm taking more time. I'll go to GS3. So GS3, this paper I don't know till even I cannot figure out what's happening in this paper, because this year my score in GS3 is disaster. The year which gave me a rank, in that year my GS3 score is all-time low. I got 71 if I'm not wrong. For the last 2 years it's 80. This year it's 71. So I'm not sure what's going in this paper, because my performance, I think it was well, but yes, I'll just tell what to do, that's it. I cannot tell what, because GS1 and GS2 my strategy has worked for the last 3 years. I have never changed any strategy. For GS3 I've tried to change it somewhat better, but I don't know what's happening. So this is the most dynamic paper, most diverse paper you can find. So the completing this paper itself is sometimes a challenge, because the scope of bouncers is big in this paper, because there are some bouncers. For example, in 2021 there's this question on WHO air quality guidelines. I don't even know what that is. This year there's a question on cellulose decomposition, chemical process on cellulose decomposition. That is like, that is last answer that I've written. I've written that in 1 minute. I literally wrote some nonsense in that answer. So, but I would say this paper you need to have same. One thing is proper idea of reports, like the Niti Aayog report, PIB reports on everything, like the commissions. For example, Dalwai Commission on Agriculture, Niti Aayog 75 strategy document, certain PIB reports, missions like National Semiconductor Mission. You need to have basic idea of this. Secondly, you need to be most updated in this paper. You need to use the most recent examples, such as in your internal security or in your science and technology. You need to cite the best dynamic recent current affairs that you have gone through. For example, money laundering. You need to cite about use of darknet. Now, darknet is being used in money laundering. Or else, if you are writing about internal security, like maritime domain, you need to write recent conventions in the maritime domain. We have opened an National Maritime Domain Awareness Center. You need to write those points. So you need to have the best knowledge of current affairs. Constantly update your notes. Thirdly, this paper nowadays, even in the 10 marks, more than 3 dimensions have been asked. For example, in 2021 on terrorism itself, in 10 markers, 4 dimensions have been asked. So it might be asked in future as well. So make sure that you have certain flow charts, such that you use less space, convey more idea, and go to the next dimension. Okay? So you need to have proper thematic flow charts. Fourthly, this paper requires presentation of data and stats. You need to have proper data and stats. So have proper knowledge of commissions, reports, government steps, recent government steps being taken. For example, there's a question on infrastructure or logistics. You need to cite examples like National Infra Pipeline, National Monetization Pipeline, Gati Shakti, or else National NAPFID, National Bank for Financing Infra Development. Or else if there's a question on NPS, you need to write about bad banks. IDRCL, Indian Debt Reconstruction Limited. You need to write these answers. You need to cite most recent examples. I've been citing them. I don't know what's happening with me. I don't know, but I'm just telling what I've done. That's it. I cannot assure you a solid strategy on this paper. So just forgive me on this paper. Yeah, we'll start with the first question. Yeah, syllabus. So in GS3 also there are certain syllabus components which has the most cost benefit ratio. If you spend less amount of time, you can get maximum marks. This I have been telling on each and every platform that I'm going now from the past 1 month. So, for example, there are some vague topics. In those vague topics, you cannot put your more time. That requires spontaneity. For some things, if you have better prepared notes, you can do it. For example, GS3. Kinda. Yeah. If you see. The inclusive growth and issues arising from it. Basically, this is a very small component. Have a proper definition of inclusive growth. What inclusive growth really is. Then, what are the challenges for inclusive growth? Okay. Then, you can use multiple topics from poverty. All these things you can cite it there. So, this is a small topic. Inclusive growth definition, strategy for inclusive growth in India, and challenges in inclusive growth. So, you can refer books like Sanjeev Verma. You can refer books like Indian Economic Development, NCRT. Also many coaching materials or the various things like. But in the end of the day, you need to highlight multiple things. This is a small component which requires diversity. For example, inclusive growth, you should write about financial inclusion. You need to write about rural infrastructure. You need to write about connectivity, infrastructure. You need to write about digital development. These are nothing but inclusive growth. It is involving all sectors of people in the development. If you see again, government budgeting, that's very small topic. What is happening in the budget? What are different types of budget? What are off-budget borrowings? What is gender budgeting? What is participative budgeting? What is line item budgeting? These are basic definitions. You'll find them in many value addition materials in the internet. So go to them. That is very small topic. Challenges in budgeting. Each and every year there's a question on this, but aspirants are failing to recognize that this comes from so and so. For example, in 2019 there's this question on what are the challenges in the expenditure, like in managing expenditure. I was not able to write the answer properly, but if once after brainstorming the syllabus, I made sure that I came to know that it's part of government budgeting. So what are the challenges in expenditure? Basically, not having proper plan of actions, not having proper delivery mechanisms for these funds, lack of proper outcome monitoring. These are basic challenges. So all this will be dealt in the government budgeting thing. Also, if you see issues related to direct and indirect farm subsidies, same. You'll have many materials on this. Different types of subsidies: current subsidies, electricity subsidies, fertilizer subsidies, income subsidies. What are the issues? For example, MSP is nothing but a kind of support. It has some issues. It only promotes rice wheat cultivation. Also, MSP is only being cashed by those big farmers. Also, there are delays in giving MSPs. Also, MSP is not being covered for many horticulture products. So, it is leading to monocropping. See, these are the basic issues. PDS. It is literally giving you what you need to read. PDS. Objectives, functioning, limitations, revamping, issues of buffer stock and food security. So you can solidly develop a 3-page PDS notes. PDS, history of PDS. How did PDS evolve? What are the challenges in PDS? The public distribution system, you can divide it into 4 parts. Procurement, transportation, storage, distribution. Transportation may challenges, distribution may challenges, storage may challenges. Then steps. You have many committees like Shanta Kumaran committee. You also have Niti Aayog recommendations. You also have many points available in the internet. So divide that sector into 4 parts, write them. So in future it may be asked like what are the challenges faced in the distribution component of the PDS? What are the challenges faced in the procurement component of the PDS? So for the procurement part, you write challenges like improper transportation system leading to poor procurement, higher subsidies burden on the FCA to to pay MSPs for the people. Then we'll write way forward. The Shanta Kumaran committee has recommended for outsourcing of procurement to the best performing states. The center need not procure everything. States can also, the best states can procure. Also, use of panchayatis in procuring. Also, don't procure, give food coupons to people. Don't give food grains. These are Shanta Kumaran committee recommendations. You'll use them there. Also, you'll have this food processing and related industries in India. Food processing. If you write, you'll properly get 3 to 4 page notes. Scope and significance of the FPI. Scope. What is food processing? You have stats. Size of food processing sector, 2.5% of GDP. How many members it is employing? Significance. What is it doing? It is adding value. It is reducing food wastage. It is promoting forward linkages. You have 2 linkages, right? Backward linkages and forward linkages to the agriculture. Backward linkages is farm inputs. Forward linkages is procurement, distribution. So you have location. Again, map. Where is food processing industry located? Have that map, that's it. You have a question last time, in 2019 there's a question. Why are agro-processing sectors concentrated in the northwest India? It's nothing but location. Northwest India, why is it concentrated in northwest India? One, strong food base. The states of Punjab, Rajasthan, Haryana, they're rich in cultivation of rice, wheat and many crops. Strong food base. That's why these are promoting. Secondly, it has proper transportation network, logistics development. Thirdly, it has strong business enterprise classes to invest in the food processing sector. Fourthly, it is quite close to the metropolitan areas like Delhi, Jaipur, all these regions. That's what. You write just these 4 to 5 points. Infrastructure. Again, energy. You'll write on energy, coal, oil, natural gas, electrical energy, all this, nuclear energy, all these things. Ports. Again, you'll write about ports. If you go to Niti Aayog strategy at 75 document, you'll get proper content on ports. You'll get proper content on roads, airports, railway, everything. So be wise in selecting those multiple resources. Take good points from each and every resources and put that in your notes. But if you see these topics like achievements in India in science and technology, this thing, it has no end. So what will you do? You'll have basic idea. Just read, be aware of what all things are happening around you. Sometimes a question might be asked about Vishweshwar Iyer's contributions to the India science and technology. MS Swaminathan's contribution. PC Mahalanobis contribution. So these things, at least make sure that you have 2 to 3 points. So the rest 2 points, you can build on those 3 points and make it a 5-point answer. Or else awareness in the fields of IT, space, computers. Awareness. So he's not asking you to be technical, proper awareness. IT, space, computers. This time there's a question on James Webb Telescope. I'm not aware of the complete sophisticated elements of the James Webb Telescope. So I've just written about what that is, what does it do, who has built it, so on. Just so and so points for 15 markers. So have best current affair examples with you, proper idea of government schemes, commissions and reports, such that you build a proper notes and use them. And also flow charts, diagrams, data. For example, there's a question on renewable energy. You need to draw a pie chart of the distribution of the energy. If there's a question on transportation, you need to have a pie chart on multimodal transportation. Road kitna hai, rail kitna hai, you need to have that, all that things. Yeah, this is my first question. I'll discuss the first 2 questions because one is from budgeting, one is from the food processing sector. And I'll go to the 4th question and I'll discuss 150 markers from internal security. First question. So this is the question. Discuss how mega food parks are key to the boosting rural economy in India. Mega food parks. We have a PM Sampada program to promote value addition in food processing sector. You need to have basic awareness of that scheme. So mega food parks is nothing but setting food parks close to the rural areas such that the procurement can be done and they can be processed. So the farmers will get better price for their crops. Okay. Also, there will be a dedicated infrastructure in these mega food parks such that proper lab, research, quality of the procured food grains, they are properly processed. At the same time, there is proper retail support, marketing support, at the same time logistics to make sure that cold chain is developed, the procured goods are safe. So these are mega. So how does it linking that to rural development? So I've just written mega food. I've given what mega food parks really are. They are food processing clusters set up with an intent to promote backward and forward linkages to agriculture and realize value addition. In India, basically almost 25 to 40% of our food grains are getting wasted. So through this food processing sectors, we can improve 25% value addition at this rate. So this is the value addition to the produce. Again, keywords: backward linkages, forward linkages, farm to fork realization, farm to fork realization. You need to use these words. Boost to the rural economy. First point. But where are farmers predominantly present? Rural areas, right? So in the rural areas, farmers are predominantly present. If they are good and if welfare is reaching to them, even the rural welfare is also there, right? If farmers are well, if they are getting good money, they'll consume a lot. Their families will be a lot. Their debt will be coming down. They'll invest more. So the rural economy will also get boosted, right? So better price realization for farmers with disintermediation. Disintermediation is nothing but previously you have APMCs. You have many traders, middlemen involving in that procurement. This is leading to poor wages to the poor prices to the farmers. Now this food processing sectors will cut it. It is disintermediating and is telling I'll directly deal with you. Let's talk the deal and let's set up the deal. I'll give what you want. We'll just break it between us. So better price realization for farmers with disintermediation, leading to doubling farmers' income. We have a goal, doubling farmers' income. Secondly, investment and development of rural infrastructure. So when you get mega food parks, the surrounding areas will also get developed, right? You'll have warehouses, you'll have roads, you have cold chain infrastructure, you'll have houses for the employees, you'll have many institutions, education institutions around that. So investment and development of rural infra such as roads, warehouses, digital infrastructure to support those food parks. See, my aim is I'm just seeing two things: rural economy, mega food parks. So mega food parks, what all are there in rural economy? Farmers, rural infrastructure, rural economy, these things. So I'll link these things to the mega food parks. Now first I've ticked the farmers of the rural area to the mega food parks. Now rural infra I've ticked to the mega food parks. Now employment generation. Now rural economy, employment. So in downstream and upstream. Downstream food processing sector, you have two streams: downstream and upstream. So in upstream you have research, procurement from the farmers, grading of the produce. In the downstream you have retailing, marketing, transportation, these things. So across the spectrum you have the scope to generate employment to the rural people. So employment generation in the downstream and upstream, such as quality grading, marketing, packaging of goods. So I have a report, Confederation of Indian Industries, which says that food processing sector has the potential to generate 36 million man hours of employment. So I've told you, right, citing the recent report, significant thing that is there. Second, the fourth point, better rural urban linkages. We need to make sure that our development is coherent. Rural areas and urban areas need to develop coherently. So you are linking this food parks are that secondary sector, right? Belongs to the manufacturing sector, which is linked to the primary sector of agriculture. So rural and urban areas are getting linked, right? So better rural and urban linkage through marketing of the produce, e-commerce. These food grains will eventually enter into e-commerce. Removes indebtedness of farmers. Rural areas, the biggest issue is indebtedness. Informal credit creeping into the households. So we have that 43, we have a report saying that 43% of agriculture households are indebted. Now with food processing sector coming in, better price realization, the debt will come less. But still we have challenges. These food parks. One is poor connect with farmers. These mega food parks or these big industry food parks, they don't have proper connect with the farmers. So for this, we need to promote farmer produce organizations, FPOs, cooperatives like this. Then connectivity issues. Lack of proper roads or railways is leading to connectivity issues to these food parks. Then lack of proper quality grading, pre-processing infrastructure. Pre-processing infrastructure means the time at which we take procurement. Before giving to the procurement, it needs to be processed at the farmhouse as well to make sure that the spoiled grains are removed. That is not there. So the defective grains are being given to the industries. So pre-processing. So I have given this way forward through government schemes. So in this regard, government has taken measures such as Sampada, PLI scheme, product linked incentive, PLI scheme. Infra status to micro food processing sectors. Infrastructure status means it has a proper financing benefits. It is dealt separately to promote farm to fork realization. This is my answer. So it's using your keywords, your statistics, the reports, everything. So the question is on gender budgeting. Like, what are the issues? It is gender budgeting is prevalent for the decades, but still there are issues. What we need to do? That is the question. So it's nothing but it's part of government budgeting. So I've defined what government budgeting, gender budgeting is. So it's a mode of formulating policies, rules, laws, and budgets with a view to promote gender inclusive development. So it has proper principles like gender specific allocation. Means your funds, there is this proper gender specific component. Then gender component in the schemes as well. Each and every scheme there's a proper gender component. Then thirdly, monitoring the outcomes. It's not just dispersing the funds, we'll also monitor the outcomes. So these are the principles of gender budgeting. So in that, I cannot write all those 3 points as sentences again. That lead my space. So what I'm doing is I want to convey my idea. I have lots and lots of idea of it, but I want to convey all of it. What shall I do? I'll write some part in the description thing and I'll just use the flow chart. Sorry, the ray diagram. So it is, the question is, gender budget is in decades of being. What are the issues? So what is the decades of being? How is it there from the last 1 decade? So gender budgeting in India has begun from the budget of 2005-2006. That is one point that I have given. Secondly, in the last 7 to 8 years, we have gender budgeting cells in the ministries. So each and every ministry in the central government, in the union government, has gender budgeting cells, a separate component. So whenever whatever the scheme they design, they'll also have a gender budgeting cell as well. So they'll also give a gender component in it. Also adoption, many states have also adopted gender budgeting like Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Kerala. But still, again the next one, make sure that you highlight your subheadings. That is what highlights your dimension. Reasons for not ensuring gender equal society. So this gender budgeting is not promoting to gender equal society. Why? We don't have proper gender specific data. Only if we have data we can plan our budgets. But gender specific data, how deprivation is happening in the various genders, like we don't have proper data on transgenders now. It's not just women. Gender is not just women. You also have transgenders. So we don't have proper data on transgenders. So lack of gender specific segregated to monitor outcomes of women and transgenders. These are gender minorities, right? Then laxity of states in setting up a budget cells. Many states have not still set up budgeting cells. The Ministry of Women or the Ministry of Finance has been guiding states to set up gender budgeting cells, but states have not adopted it. Inadequate gender specific allocation budgets. In many budgets, gender specific allocation is not being given. For example, in budget 2021, the last before year's budget, there was 10% decrease for gender specific schemes. Then you have poor delivery mechanisms. Yes, you are giving funds, but the funds are not being delivered properly. Why? Firstly, financial literacy is less. Many patriarchal societies, women are not being given mobile phones. They don't have bank accounts. They have less financial literacy. Also, this is diversion of funds. For example, women are getting funds, but it is being used by the men of the homes. So what we should do? What are the measures we need to take? Again, I've used the committees or different things that I know. Issuing gender budget manuals with the help of UN Women. United Nations Women has been investing in giving gender budgeting manuals. It is asking the state, is helping the state through some manuals how to develop this gender budgeting. Civil society participation, such as NGO Disha. Some NGOs like Disha have been investing in this gender budgeting formulations. Following global models of Brazil, El Salvador. They are role models for gender budgeting. So these things you'll get the content if you read the internet. Mandatory gender budgeting cells. You need to have proper norms, departmental norms to set it mandatorily in all the departments to have GBCs. That's it. This is my answer. So I've just break it down. I've just defined the thing, talked about principles, then the issues being faced and what we need to do. So as I've given the way forward thing, I haven't highlighted the conclusion well. Just wrote a single sentence. That's it. 6th question. Fourth question. So I'll write on 4th question, 115 markers on science and internal security. We'll wrap this off. The question is, MSMEs are considered as the treasure at the bottom of the pyramid. What is bottom of the pyramid? The largest section, the poor people or the rural areas or the lower section of the economic ladder. There MSMEs is scattering a lot. It's considered as a treasure. Why? What are the challenges being faced? He is asking us to suggest some measures in the government measures as well. So I have given MSMEs again stats 14% of GDP, 50% of manufacturing, thus considered as the treasure at the bottom of the pyramid by fueling economic growth. So that 50% of manufacturing or the 14% of GDP or 25% of employment at the bottom sector is being pushed by the MSMEs. Why it is bottom? Employment generation, growth of manufacturing sector, rural development, export potential. So I cannot highlight that again. My space is just 10 marks. So I'm just giving a ray diagram. So make sure that if there are 3 dimensions or 2 dimensions, 1 dimension is being conveyed through picture, through flow charts or ray diagram. The other thing you can write as points. This is the strategy that I have changed this year for all the GS papers. Previously I used to write sentences for each and every dimension. That ate my space and time. So by this you can save your space, you can save your time as well. You can work this out. Then challenges faced by MSMEs. Here I didn't write some statistics, but yeah, MSMEs don't have proper access to credit. So if you see many local industries, local MSMEs, small scale MSMEs, they borrow from informal lenders like agriculture. So there is this poor access to credit. Secondly, dwarfism in MSMEs. So many MSMEs are still dwarfs. Means they are there from the last 30 to 40 years, but they are not able to compete with those infants. Means 2 years, 3 years companies. Why? Because they have less productivity, low upgradation of their machinery, their economic output is less. See, example, firms with 10 plus years are promoting still less jobs, skill-less jobs. So dwarfism in MSMEs with low productivity. Thirdly, poor quality and lack of competitors export markets. In export markets, the goods that these MSMEs are producing have poor quality. So they were not able to compete in the global markets. Again, there is this lack of export infrastructure. We don't have proper connectivity. Again, the same themes you are highlighting. The theme which I have highlighted in mega food parks, the infra connectivity, here you have to highlight here itself as well. So many of the MSMEs are in rural areas, but the connectivity is less. The connectivity to the ports or the airports is less. So that is impacting their export potential. Stringent labor laws. So many states have tight labor laws. For example, having proper restrictions, timings or some things. Some ways it is also creating more compliance cost on MSMEs. So these MSMEs need to go to office, comply with their laws, taxation laws, labor laws. It's creating more cost on them. Same time also given contemporary example like COVID-19 pandemic. So with COVID-19 pandemic, all the trade has stopped, right? So some raw materials, the import of raw materials has stopped. Because of this, many MSMEs have stopped their production. These are the challenges it is facing. So my recommendations. Yeah, this is my recommendation. Improve competitiveness through exports in India model. 2 years back, Economic Survey has come with a specific chapter saying exports in India, like make in India, export in India. So you improve competitiveness through that model. Then better credit availability. Means better loans, like enhance priority sector lending. You have banking, you have PSL, right? Nothing but I'm bringing that here. How you better you link PSL limits, promoting partial credit guarantee. You have credit guarantee cooperation. 59 minutes instant loan, you have that thing. Capacity development by hub spoke models. Hub spoke models means you have a MSME support hub, then you have spokes like MSMEs in different neighboring areas. This was recommended by UK Sinha committee. So for MSMEs, UK Sinha committee is very much important. So whenever I write a MSME notes, I'll have a separate component on UK Sinha recommendations, committee recommendations I've told you earlier. Better tax compliance by GST composition, GST refunds, such that the tax burden is less. Thus, this can ensure Atmanirbhar Bharat promoting growth of MSME. That is my answer. Okay. So I've again highlighted the best current affairs that I have, the commission reports like UK Sinha, also the statistics like 14% of GDP, all these things. So these streams need to be iterated. Last question, I'll talk on internal security. 17th question. Yeah, for conducting military operations with an all for one for all approach, defense doctrinal and structural jointness is imperative. So basically you are coming with theater commands, right? You might be aware of theater commands. So it is saying that armed forces, different armed forces are working in silos. This is not leading to proper integration. So many security crises like Kargil, for example, Kargil you are fighting, that's literally mountain warfare that's happening, where you need the support of Air Force. Right, but improper coordination between armed forces and air forces has led to delay in the action, resource shortage, logistics impairment. So this has led to some loss. So many committees after the Kargil committee have recommended for theatre commands. So many states, countries like USA, Israel, they have theatre commands. For example, India also has a theatre command in Andaman and Nicobar, where all the three forces work together. That's nothing but jointness in operation. So doctrinal, you have proper doctrine for operation. Till now, our armed forces worked in silos. So that's what the question really asks. So India has started realizing the need for all for one and one for all approach in defense to promote joint operations in military and ensure efficiency. This is a basic introduction. So what is that? What is the defense doctrines? The jointness of different doctrines, the jointness of different structures, how are we promoting it? Again, you need to use your current examples. Setting up of theatre commands, realizing all for one. All for one is the keyword that we have. All for one. All armed forces for one theatre. All armed forces for one objective. Setting up of theatre commands, realizing all for one approach. For example, we had when Bipin Rawat was alive, he rallied for having a peninsular command, air command, cyber command. So in a peninsular command, serving the peninsular region, you'll have armed forces, navy, army, navy, air force, everyone in a single theatre. Okay. So better structural integration of forces. So many forces, they are structurally integrated into a theatre. Joint procurement of goods. So if three armed forces are working separately, three need to procure separately. So that is duplication of efforts. Now if three come into theatre, a single entity will procure. So that is an effectiveness, efficiency. Optimality in logistics usage. So the resources or the transportation or the capacity, capital goods, they use it jointly. For example, radars. For example, you have radar shortage. Army helicopters are demanding for it. Army like this aviation planes are demanding for it. There's radar shortage. Now if they form as theatres, a single radar can cater to the both people. Okay. So that thing. Secondly, structural jointness. Now I have theatre command. Now structural jointness ensures better communication among armed forces as well as better cooperation with civil bureaucracy. When the both structures are getting jointed, then this communication between the armed forces is better. In Kargil, why there was this delay in action? Because the communication was not better between different armed forces. Now, with structural jointness, you have better communication between the armed forces. At the same time, the civil bureaucracy or the civil executive or the government can also communicate well. See if you see. Role of the next step that we have taken. One, we have started theatre commands. Now, Chief of Defence Staff. We have created a separate post for it. So it promotes jointness in armed forces. A common Chief of Defence Staff will integrate all the armed forces under his command. At the same time, he is also a part of, he is the secretary rank officer in the Ministry of Defence. So he is also linking, he is also communicating with the Defence Ministry. That is the role. That is another step that we have taken for structural jointness. Third, doctrinal jointness. So each and every armed forces have separate doctrines to fight. Now we are linking all these doctrines to fight for a common cause. So we have integrated battle groups, IBGs. So that is based on threats, terrains and tasks. For example, Northeast, it's a different threat is there. They have different tasks, so terrain. So these integrated battle groups, you'll link all the infantry groups, armory groups, weaponry groups. You link them into a separate group and you'll give them a proper threat, proper terrain and proper task. So efforts of infantry, navy, aviation, everything. Now we have joint border management. It's all about jointness. What all the things that are happening in defense, you need to bring multiple current affairs. One, I've got ITC. Now I've got IBG. Then I've got CODS. Now I've got joint border management. They're exploring for one border force, such that one for all. I've highlighted all for one through theatre commands. Now I'm highlighting one for all. One border force for all the borders. This was recommended by Madhav Godbole committee after the Kargil war. So this thing this is the static part that was 20 years ago. All the things have, again, global nations such as US and UK have realized doctrinal structural jointness by creating dedicated theatre commands. One generic point that I have written at the end. So all this can help in realizing, again, what will this do? Joint cooperation in attacking threats to the nation's security. Optimization of procurement of logistics. Easy flow of command. Better integration of capabilities. Generic points just to fill the space. But still there are issues. What are the issues? So when these theatres are forced, certain small, like armed forces, they have some apprehensions. Like our resources, they are being used by others, or else we cannot cater to many people. So the armed forces, like Air Force, have shown some apprehensions. These are recorded. Then lack of autonomy of service chiefs. Now we have things like Chief of Defence Staff. Now Chief of Defence Staff has this operational supervision over all the forces. Now the service staffs, their powers might get diluted. This is what apprehensions given by service chiefs. Then shortage of resources. For joint operations, you need to have proper resources, but this is shortage. Difficult human resource integration. Army has one type of culture, work culture. Navy has one type of work culture. Now when you put them in a single theater, there's this issue over what do you say, this human resource integration. Also they're like, while preparing for interview, I've gone through this theater commands, I've read about it. So for example, if in Andaman and theater command, till there are issues over sharing of lands. In defense estates, some are registered in the army, some are registered in the air force or navy. So as they, when they formed as a theater, there are issues over sharing of the lands between these forces. So these are the issues that are being faced. Now way forward. Till now, India is not having a proper national security strategy. USA, for each and every 2 or 3 years, it realizes a national security strategy where it talks about what are our common threats, what we need to do, how we need to assess ourselves in the security domain. Many countries have that national security strategy, but India never had a national security strategy. So this is my suggestion. Have a proper national security strategy to promote defense jointedness that promotes theaterization, common border management commands. That's it. So again, I have highlighted about committee reports, I have talked about statistics, I have talked about many current affairs. Main theme is all for one, one for all, defense jointedness, jointness in defense. So I have talked about Kargil thing example. So all for one, the border management, so theater commands, one for all, oneness, again the holisticness, right? Identify keywords in syllabus, GS4 mein. And you need to have proper simple definitions for each and every word, GS4 syllabus, each and every word in syllabus, because GS4 is all about making the answer so simple. At the same time, you need to reiterate those words, those keywords again and again your answer. For example, words like attitude, words like emotional intelligence, integrity, they might be used in other answers as well. So you need to have proper definitions for each and every keyword, simple, solid definitions. Thirdly, you need to have examples, the best examples. For each and every topic, you need to give a contemporary example or the historic examples. For example, if you're talking about integrity, you need to talk about great officers like T.N. Seshan. Or else you can talk about Professor Kuvempu of Mysore University, who despite having chance of giving a half mark to his son, such that he can pass an examination, he didn't do that. Vishweshwaraya, on the day of his retirement, he has gone to the office through office car, but after retirement, he has come through public transport. That's nothing but a classic case of integrity. So you need to have this better examples or ground examples. Compassion. You can talk about Billy and Bowman, the elephant whisperers, right? The Oscar-winning documentary. So you can write about the compassion that they have for the elephant. So these things, these fetch you that extra marks. It also gives an idea to the reader that this fellow is trying to link many things to this answer. So syllabus words, definitions, examples, quotations. For each and every topic, you need to have proper repository of quotations, because quotations effectively conveys an idea better than a point writing. So you need to have proper quotations. Okay, so these 4 things are main things. So in ethics, you have theory and case studies, right? Basically, case studies also, we are also seeing it as an one-off answer like that. No. Case studies are nothing but the application of the theory. So in the case studies, if you see, each and every case study is centered around a theme in your syllabus. So you need to highlight those keywords again in the case studies. So example, see, you have ethics and human interface. You need to have definition for ethics. What are the dimensions of ethics? Ethics in private relationships means ethics in family, ethics in school life, ethics in public relationships, ethics in workspace, ethics in religion, so and so. Then you have human values. What are the values? Role of family. Each and every keyword you need to have proper notes. Attitude. What is it? What is attitude? What is social influence? What is persuasion? What is moral attitude? Definitions. What is emotional intelligence? Okay, then contributions of moral thinkers and philosophers. So each and every moral thinker from Kautilya, Plato, Aristotle, Gandhi, Vivekananda, you need to have proper 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 learnings of it, which can be used in your answers. So not just the question that is asked about Gandhiji, but you can also use Gandhiji in various other questions. Or else you can use Plato in various other questions. Probity, definition of probity. Then you need to have what are ethics in public administration, what conscience is,
like this. And if you see there, case studies on above issues. So these are the issues and case studies on this. So you need to have this proper definition such that you understand the context and link that to the case study. So the question is about welfare state. So what is welfare state? How does it promote ethics in governance? I don't have a question recorded here, but based on the dimensions that I've written, I can assess the question. So question is, how does welfare state promotes ethics in governance? So in the syllabus you have, right, ethics in governance, you have a component. So I've just defined welfare state. Welfare is nothing but state acts as that as a parent of the citizens. It promotes for the state works for the welfare of the people. So welfare state is a concept that aims at socio-economic development of individual, where state plays the key role in nurturing the citizen. It nurtures the citizens through its policies, laws, through constitution, through good governance. So here I am trying to give a quotation, like as Gandhiji says, Rama Rajya is the end goal of Hind Swaraj. Rama Rajya is nothing but a philosophical version of welfare state. Ram Rajya is where each and every citizen is prosperous, the state is prosperous, citizens are satisfactory about rule. So ethical governance, which acknowledges ethics as guide for governance, realizes welfare state. Ethical governance is where governance is run based on the principles of ethics, which is ultimately leads to welfare state. So ethical traits of welfare state. So welfare state, what are that principles in the welfare state that promotes ethical governance? Like respecting rights of individual. So a welfare state always respects its individuals. Our constitution has individual at the core of it. So it gives fundamental rights. It asks them to follow some fundamental duties. So it respects the rights of individuals. Then good governance. A welfare state always invests in good governance. So it has consensus-based governance, participation-based governance. That's why we have local governments, we have NGOs. So they are participative. This is realizing good governance. Then a welfare state promotes integrity of its institutions and its leaders. So India as a welfare state has judiciary. It has many, the bureaucracy, they have integrity, they have some laws they need to follow. The leaders have some integrity. Equitable justice. A welfare state always promotes justice. That is equitable justice. So through reservations or else through rights, we are promoting equitable justice. So welfare state, these are the principles of ethics that are followed in the governance. Now, so there are certain ways and means to promote ethics in governance. So through welfare state, how does we promote ethics in governance? 1. Strengthening the holistic competency of bureaucracy. Bureaucracy has two things. Holistic competency is nothing but the combination of two things, IQ and EQ. Intelligence quotient and emotional quotient. Previously, we only had EQ. Not previously, but basically following laws or delivering the outcome or promoting efficiency. These are linked with IQ. But it only fulfills the bureaucratic ethos. That is neutrality, objectivity, rationality, doesn't follow EQ part. EQ is very much important to connect with the citizens. Emotional quotient, that is having empathy, having compassion. So when you mix this both, it is IQ plus EQ that gives holistic competence link. So we need to link ethics, ethos, efficiency and equity. Mission Karma Yogi. We have Mission Karma Yogi that will link this both such that ethics in governance are realized and welfare state is realized at the final. Then reforms in politics such as decriminalization of politics. In politics now we have reformed bureaucracy. Now we are reforming politics through decriminalization or else anti-defection law, all these things. So strong foundational values of, I have told you, institutions. Leaders, institutions, bureaucracy, all these play key role in the governance, right? So welfare state, we need to promote ethical governance and all these things. Now we have addressed leaders, we've addressed bureaucracy. Now we are talking about institutions. So strong judiciary, CAG, ECI, these are constitutional bodies, right? So they have integrity, they have ideas of probity. So this is being promoted through our constitution. Now we have strong ethical infrastructure like charters, citizen charters, social audits, ethical infra. So these make sure that ethics are being used on a wider scale in governance. So these four things promotes that ethics in governance such that ethics in governance can be realized by all-round transformation of bureaucracy, institutions, leaders to realize Ramarajya. This is my answer, right? So I've used one quotation, have used examples, have talked about words like integrity, ethical infrastructure, like this. Yeah, here the question is role of conscience helping the civil servants to exercise their duty. Okay, this is the question. So you need to talk about conscience first, then link it to civil servants. So basically, I am started with the definition. Simple definition. Conscience is nothing but the moral compass within us. Compass is nothing but which gives us direction, right? Conscience is that moral compass. It gives us moral directions, commanding us to do right things when in a complex situation. Okay, I've given definition. Then quotation. Conscience is the ultimate guide of the world. This is what Buddha has told. Okay. So yeah, the question is role of conscience in protecting ethics. How does conscience promote civil service duty? So now, role of conscience in protecting ethics. 1. Manasakshi, right? Conscience. Resolves conflicts of interest and dilemmas. So if we have strong conscience, it gives us a strong voice. So ఎప్పుడన్నా ఆ సందిగ్ధంలో పడినప్పుడు, whenever there is conflict of interest, dilemmas ఉన్నప్పుడు, this inner voice will help us to break that conflict. Issues strong moral commands that realizes integrity. A inner voice valla will make sure that we follow that integrity. For example, Ashok Kemka, he is very sincere civil servant. So he is able to act that strongly against corruption because he has that strong conscience, strong inner voice. Then prerequisite for values of empathy and compassion, because his conscience tells him to fight for children. From that comes empathy. So I am highlighting the words again. Empathy, keywords. I am again reiterating them. Empathy, compassion, integrity, conflict of interest. These are there in our syllabus. Counters negative emotions of corruption, greed, lust. So having a proper conscience helps us regulate our emotions. So conscience is that inner voice. It's like that guru into us. How does conscience help civil servants? To uphold constitutional values during tough emotional imbroglios or ethical dilemmas. Civil servants goes through some because they are dealing in complex situations, right? So they need to have proper inner voice to guide them. TN sessions, ethical conduct for free and fair elections. TN session was targeted by many political entities, but how did he sail through such crisis? Through strong conscience that he had inside him. Promotes courage of conviction, again, to act with conviction and take objective decisions during tough times. So certain tough times require certain tough decision making. That comes from our inner voice through proper conscience. For example, Rajini Sikri Saibal. So there is this teacher training recruitment scam that happened in Haryana. So where many higher political authorities were involved. She was able to fight it despite she had some life threats. Then makes civil servant look inwards and satisfies one's belief system. So having a proper conscience makes sure that civil servant can communicate with himself and he can satisfy his own belief system rather than acting contrary to his beliefs. For example, Harsh Mandar is an IFS officer, but after Godra raids he has resigned it because his conscience made him to work with those people, okay, for the victims or others, to make sure that he works for the society. Strengthens emotional intelligence to face tough times. Emotional intelligence, again, having a proper conscience makes sure that our inner emotions are balanced. So when our inner emotions are balanced, we become self-aware, we project our behavior in a balanced way. So that requires emotional intelligence. So Sagayam, U Sagayam, I forgot his name, but his innovations to prevent diversion of subsidies. So many LPG subsidies are being wrongly used by restaurants. So these are tough times. So he had this inner emotional intelligence to make sure that he faced these tough times. So however, at the end, I have given that conscience cannot always act as a friend. It needs to be supported by law. So this is this quotation by Joseph Suvango. Conscience cannot always help us. That's why laws are there. So our conscience always cannot help us to move forward. You need to also follow by laws. That's what I've given. That is my quotation. Okay? Case study. So make sure that you have your definitions, reiterating your keywords in your answers, taking multiple themes, involved in the quotation part of it. At the same time, some examples like that I have given. Not only just civil servants examples, you can talk about Kaila. I have talked about Kaila Satyarthi. I have talked about Harsh Mandar. You can talk about Vishwesharaya. You can talk about, for example, if some ecological ethics question is asked, you can talk about this girl, Valentina in Manipur, who has cried after the municipal administration has cut some trees. That's a basic example for compassion towards trees. Yeah, I don't have a question of a case study. So this is some case study where some communal right has happened and so. There's some IPS officer. There's some media attention. she need to deal with it. Some case study linked to it. Okay, but I'm just giving the pattern of how I address case studies. So one dimension is what is differentiate between hate speech and free speech. The other dimension is how does social media influence such hate speech and so and so. The third dimension is promote your course of action and justify your steps taken. Okay, so that's it. Previously, I think for this year main student, this is some, you please hear this carefully with caution. Previously in this market, we have certain formats for case study, right? You might be aware of it. Introduction, then values, stakeholders, facts, something like this, right? This is my personal opinion. It's up to you. For the last 3 years, I have been following the same format. That ate lots and lots of my time. I was not able to focus on the core of the question. So this year what I have done is, I thought myself to not to go with those introductions, because that is almost eating a paper of mine. So case studies, he's literally not asking you to give all these things. Values involved, facts, stakeholders. It's asking you to, it's giving you 4 questions, address them. So this year I have not given these vague introductions. I've just started hitting the questions directly. So I'm suggesting you to hit those questions directly. Give a basic introduction through subject matter. What is this case study conveying? How is it linked to our syllabus? And start addressing the questions. In case if you have some scope, put those stakeholders or something. If it is, it's also not required if possible, because this year ethics paper is so lengthy because of its case studies. Have you written last year mains? 5 questions. 6 case studies, each case study 5 questions, and each and every case study some or other it's the same case study. Same, it's like Sinu Whitelaw's movies. Different templates but same thing. Same templates or same and different things. So you, after writing some 2 case studies, you'll be feeling tired. It's the same thing. So what you need to do is, what I have done is, after the first case study, I've stopped giving it. For each and every question, I have not given any introduction. I've written the subject matter and I've started writing with A, B, C. Again here there is some trap. First A option he told list the options. B, evaluate the options. So you need to write the list of the options. If you write the list of the options, again the B component, again you need to write those options and evaluate them. Time waste. What I have done is, I have put A plus B and I wrote list and evaluated them there itself. So it requires some amount of smart work, because no aspirant can invest in all those things and write all A. Again, you write the list of, basically there's a conflict of interest. So he'll ask you, list the options to face this dilemma. So you'll write A, 1, 2, 3. You write 4 options that are available to you. Again, the B component, you'll write those list, merits of each option, demerits of each option. Lots and lots of time waste that's going into it. So what I've done is A plus B, and I've written on the right side, on the left side, I've written a list of the options, merits, demerits, a 3-column table. Done. So do this kind of innovations in paper, because you never know which kind of paper might come. So here, this is how I've started. Previously, this full paper used to be filled with that values, stakeholders, facts, all these things, which are not even asked, is not even demanded by this reader. So every year, my constant scores were around 93, 94, 94. This year it was 115 because I've cut short it. It gave me so much of time such that I could innovate in options. For example, last year the same kind of case studies were asked. I've given all this unnecessary introduction. So at the end of the day, the options which I want to give, I only gave 3 options. Basically, any conflict of interest, you'll give 3 options. One is the extreme, 2 extreme options. One is either you will go by the law, you'll be strict, or else you'll leave it, you'll just you'll be suppressed by the pressure. Or one middle path. This time what I've done is, by cutting that introduction, I've added an innovative option. For example, there's this case study on a journalist publishing an article. He's about to publish an article which exposes some mining or something. So the CEO of his media organization is quite close to the political circles. So if he publishes that, his job is at threat. If his job is at threat, his family is at threat. Someone, his mother or his sister, someone is facing an life ailment. So this is the question. So basically, you'll write, I'll follow the duty, I'll be like that, or else you'll tell, I'll get suppressed, I'll not publish, my family is important, or you'll go through the middle path. I'll persuade the CEO, I'll write in anonymity, I'll not disclose the names, you'll tell that. My fourth option was, innovative option was, as I'm a media person, definitely I'll have some media circle, in other channels as well. I'll give this story to some other person, I'll help him to publish. Because his CEO will not have any problem, right? Or else the fifth option is through social media and anonymity, I'll declare it. Okay, so this, by cutting that introduction, I have enough scope to invest on these new options, which will give me better insights, which will give the reader better insights. So that introduction, be careful of using your introductions. If the case study's length is less, you use your intro. But if the length is more, start hitting the question, because he's not asking for all these values, tables, all these things. So here, this case study is about hate speech. Hate speech leading to communal violence, where a political party is, ruling party or some party is literally promoting hate speech. IPS officer need to face this. She is facing with some political pressures. So I have given the subject matter. Hate speech and religious violence have ramifications on the law and order in the district, threatening peace of nation. This is my basic introduction. I have given some intro. As Aristotle says, logos, pathos, ethos, logic, emotion and ethics guide the conduct of the individual. The current case study violates it through gross misuse of social media and fundamental rights. So I'm writing what this case study is doing, how is it linked to the syllabus. So here I have some scope. I've just written stakeholders, because this, if the case study has multiple stakeholders, it's better to write stakeholders. If it doesn't have multiple stakeholders, if it is a small case study, you go with your answers thing. So here I have multiple stakeholders, like I have social media intermediaries, platforms, I have an IPS officer, I have a political party, the leader, community of that leader, the national media involved, anti-social elements, police department. These are multiple stakeholders. So I've written ethical issues involved. The question is, write the ethical issues involved in the case study, differentiate between hate speech and free speech, how is social media promoting this hate speech, all these things, your course of action. These are 4 dimensions asked. So I have 4 papers. So I need to be wise enough to fill this. Ethical issues involved in hate speech or these kind of conflicts. Violation of right to freedom, promoting hate speech. Yes, right to freedom. Hate speech is literally violating the right to freedom of speech. Violation of IPC section 148, some law. If some ethical issues are involved, if you are writing some ethical issues, also write the laws it is violating. Dilution of secularism and communal harmony in society. Misuse of social media to promote violence. Violation of political ethics of solidarity. UNESCO has some political ethics. So I have written UNESCO's ethics. It's being violated. Absence of information literacy in individuals. As individuals are getting polarized quickly because they don't have proper information literacy. They don't know how to identify kind of information that's coming to them. That is the main reason for fake news, right? So these are the ethics that I have written which are getting violated. Now the next part, hate speech and free speech. Hate speech intended to promote enmity and violence against section of societies. Free speech intended to express one's own opinion, realizing his own liberty. Okay. In free speech, the aim is to realize one's own liberty. In hate speech, the aim is to promote enmity. Then, it threatens public security, law and order, fueling insecurities. Like the Babri demolition of Godra riots or everything. Here, it is a threatening thing. If free speech promotes preservation of self. Like, we can preserve ourselves, we can express ourselves. And promotes participative governance. Means we are participating in the governance. Like Anna Hazare's Lokpal movement example. It is a threat to democracy. Hate speech is a threat to democracy because it impacts pluralism. But free speech is a strength to democracy. Because that is what is the main core of democracy. This is the basic definition that I have differentiated. Then how does social media strongly influence such hate speech? 1. Promotes high volume, velocity, variety of data influencing people continuously. Social media is all about that high volume of data, variety of data, quickness of the data that is influencing people, because people's span of attention on social media is quick nowadays. So they jump into the conclusions quickly. Secondly, echo chamber of hyperpopulism. So social media is acting like that echo chamber. So one person tweets it, it is being retweeted, it is being shared. So there is echo, it's getting echoed. Use of technology such as algorithm manipulation, deep fakes, making things legitimate. Deep fakes, all these things are making illegitimate things legitimate. So that this fake news or hate speech is getting aggravated. Then lack of legitimate checks such as fact checking. We don't have proper checking mechanisms. Fact checks, or else people's information literacy. Right from childhood they need to know what kind of information that is coming into them, what they need to filter. That is lacking. Again, slowly, largely used by youth. So social media is largely used by youth and they have this attitude of quickness, right? So they're largely getting influenced. This is how social media is influencing these kind of behaviors. So this is my course of action. So again, every time in your question, if you get for this mains aspirant this year writing people, if you get course of action and he'll ask you justify, make sure that you justify then and there itself. Or else using full course of action on one page, then if you justify it will take time. So this is how I used to write. Course of action, the question is on the short term and the long term. That's what is asked with me. Course of action short term. The short term, what I'll do, if there's high amount of fake news and hate speech, I'll shut down the internet. That's the first thing that we need to do on the short term. Internet shutdown for temporary period to prevent further spread of misinformation. This is my justification. Why? Because first we need to cut the further spread. Then we need to act of what damage has happened. I'll make sure that the damage stops. Then I'll make sure that whatever the damage has happened, I'll work on it to prevent further spread of misinformation. Arresting the leader for his hate speech through fair inquiry. Who all the people are responsible for this, I'll arrest them, such that the rule of law, the justice is followed. Then spreading awareness that the video is doctored. If some fake news or things are happening, I need to spread the awareness. So this is doctored. I'll use fact-checking mechanisms. Same. I'll use the fact-checking mechanisms. I'll take care of NGOs, civil society to spread awareness, such that the violence and the passions of the people are subsided. On the short term it's all about firefighting. The long term it's all about construction. The long term, employing fact-checkers and spread awareness to check, curtail fake news. Surveillance of political leader speech. Here on, I'll make sure that I'll watch the speech of political leaders to preserve public order. Civil society organizations to promote cultural harmony. I'll make use of civil society organizations such that they can promote all faith meets. They can talk with communities. I'll make use of religious leaders, spiritual leaders, such that a sense of solidarity is promoted on longer term. That's it. I've not got time to conclude the answer. And I can conclude saying that our constitution, our Indian ethos promotes for Sarva Dharma Sambhava. So and so, like Vivekananda so and so, Gandhiji said so and so, our democracy is so and so. You can just give a proper philosophical conclusion. So this is my strategy for all the 4 GS papers. So make it simple, have a proper reading of your syllabus. That's what I can say. So make sure that once you prepare your notes, write tests on regular basis, be it 5 marks, 5 questions tests or 10 questions tests, write tests on a proper gradual basis. Okay, so I'm open to your questions. Yeah, this is how I plan my schedule. The prelims to mains gap last year, I made sure that, this is my important suggestion to all of you, for the mains aspirants as well, or for the next year people as well. Don't see revisions and test series as 2 different things. Try to link both of it. You should revise through your test series. You write tests, see the mistakes, work on them, revise them, write test. Again, so your test and revisions should go like that. So make sure that each and every day has this component of test, has a component of optional exam, optional subject, has a component of revision, has a component of notes making, has a component of newspaper. Okay, so each and every day all these components should be there. You read newspaper, you make some notes, you read your optional paper, you write some kind of test, be it prelims mock test or mains mock test, you make some notes, be it prelims notes or mains notes. That's how you plan your day, such that make sure that your day's routine is entertaining for you. At the same time, also make sure that you also engage in other activities, because that's where you recoup your energies. For example, for me it's cricket, or for me it's going to gym or reading a book. So don't neglect those activities. They are what gives you that energy. Also have proper realistic targets. For me, the proper time frame to set targets is a week, not 1 month. Don't ever plan for a month. It's not going to happen. That's for sure. Set a week's plan, a week's macro plan, and day's micro plan. So even though Monday's targets you cannot meet, take an extra effort and finish it on a Tuesday. And reserve your Saturdays, Sundays for tests. So this is how I used to plan my prelims to mains gap. Like, pike. So 3rd July, 20th June I have gone for Air Force interview. So 15 days I've gone there. So September 15th is when my main started last month. So I've started my test from 3rd June. I thought I'll not start reading for 1 month and write test series. I thought from the day 1 I'll start tests. Even though I have not revised it, I'll write tests. Because tests provide you that opportunity to revise your content, to reproduce your content. The content that you have in your mind, you'll reproduce it. Then by writing tests, you can revise your content. Thirdly, you can reflect. What all you have learned can be reflected on the paper. So what I have done is, I'll start with tests and I'll use that for revision. So I started directly with full tests because it's my fourth attempt site, so I didn't have I have proper sectional knowledge. I thought I should give simulations for full tests. This is what I planned. I made sure that each and every week I write 4 tests. And my Sundays are exclusively reserved for optional tests, if you see. So as I keep completing those tests, I used to highlight them in red. So that used to give me a sense of accomplishment. So that can motivate me for the next week. So the last day before going to mains, as I have made all the things red, that gave me motivation to sit for the examination. So try to create those self-rewarding mechanisms. That is very much important. For example, if I write 2 tests on Sunday evening I can go and meet my friends, go and play cricket or watch a match, something like that. So that's how I used to reward myself. So this is how I plan my day. So Sundays initially I used to write 1 max exam, 1 optional paper. So in the afternoon I used to write essay paper. So these have constantly written exams till the main thing. 16th September is when the mains have started. So if you see here, these are the mock tests. The final things are the main tests, but I have also considered them as mock tests. So make sure that you write those many tests such that your mock tests also your final exam also happens like mock exam. Okay, it should go in that flow. For me, it actually happened like that. My optional papers, every year I used to have that anxiety component. But this year, I've just approached it like a mock exam. So that's how it worked for me. I am open to your questions now. It's getting late for you also, guys. But yeah, I'm patient enough. I can answer your questions. And sorry for taking more time. If it is discuss thing, I think you need to have some personal component of it. Your observations, small examples. So, and discuss your opinion means you need to take a stand. If it is your opinion, you need to take a stand. But the opposite stand of it can be stressless. Okay, for example, if you are for fur, highlight that fur. The against component, you need to highlight it, but don't highlight it much. You can highlight it less. Analyze means you need to give proper examples, case studies, statistics in that way. Okay. Critically, it means you need to give equal emphasis on both bad and the good of it. But more or less, all of them are same, but depends upon the level of sophistication you give. For example, analyze means you need to, for example, it's a question on polity. Analyze. You need to talk about multiple case studies. You need to talk about multiple dimensions. If it is discuss your opinion, means you need to start with your stance. Mostly discuss questions are highly given of 10 markers. So 10 markers you cannot write 2 dimensions fully. So you can start with your first stance or against stance and do the opposite at some end. But still so and so things are happening. You can give some examples, that's it. That's a test. I've increased more number of tests. Even the third attempt, my number of tests were more. Fourth attempt is also the same number of tests. What I've done is these minor things like using one dimension of pictures, one dimension through flow charts or through ray diagrams. For GS4, cutting out the introductions, something like that. Secondly, the examination mindset. Previously, I had this anxiety component that's creeping in for optional. This time, I was pretty cool. So that is the change that I have done this time. But I made sure that the test series and revision component happened in synchrony. Previously it was like I used to read for a week, then write tests, something like that. This time, each and every day I used to have a revision component, I used to have a test series component. Yeah, the current affair compilations will be out by many coaching institutes. Make sure that you use those current affair compilations to add value to your notes that you have built till now. So read those current affair compilations. Don't stress on many things. Stress on those things which are highlighted in syllabus and use those as validations. Don't give separate amount of time for those compilations and read them completely. Go to the current affair compilations, have your notes aside, and take those validation points and add to your notes. It's not like don't have a separate exercise of reading those current affair compilations. It should be linked to your notes, and then and there itself you need to add to your notes and just leave it. Notes making, as I've told you, my day has a component for newspaper, some 2 to 3 hours for notes making, 2 to 3 hours for optional paper, some 2 hours for test series, like that. So that's how I plan my day. For evaluation, I had Vivekananda sir who used to correct my answers initially. Then test series evaluation was also there, always. If the question, if it is fitting your answer, you can bring it. For example, society, yeah, I understand, like if you write about poverty, so some questions will be asked on poverty in society paper. You can link it to the geography. Yeah, that is there. If a poverty question is asked on GS3, you cannot bring societal context there. But if a poverty question is asked in GS1, there are some geographical reasons for poverty as well, right? The people who are located near the coast are quite prosperous, but people located in the hills areas are quite poor. So those things you can write, because poverty, geography, so society are in the same paper. But in GS3, for example, if you write ecology, this thing I've told in other platform as well, disaster management is there. So in GS1, disaster management is all about geophysical phenomena of disasters. You'll write about those geographical reasons. But those things you cannot highlight in the GS3 part. Even ecology thing as well. Coral reefs and mangroves, you'll write from geographical point of view in GS1. But in GS3, you'll write conservation point of view or the conventions point of view. Okay? But make sure that the diversity should also be aligned with the syllabus. You cannot just, you can write like 1 or 2 points, you can bring it, but your complete answer should not be from some other paper. You can bring it. For example, society, if that geography point that you want to write like fits into the demand of the question, there's no issue in writing it. But it shouldn't overshadow your main points. That thing for me, I never had such kind of templates. I just went with the demand of the question. What all came to me organically, I used to write it. So for me, what my personal belief is, having those kind of templates makes your answer rigid. It only makes you think in that kind of perspective. So for me, I'll see the dimensions. If there's scope for using such kind of templates, I'll use it. But I never had a templates for that. No. My question is, my notes is to be like that. I used to start with definition, some like government measures on so and so issue, pros and cons of that issue, various committees, case studies, reports associated with that issue, some way forward kind of things, like some innovative points, statistics, data, graphs, pie charts. So all this used to be an exam, that thing. For example, if there's railway sector, so I used to have some statistics on railways, then some issues faced in the railway sector, then some committee recommendations, or some government schemes, some statistics, and some way forward points. So I used to refer multiple things. You have the resources, right? That's it. Yeah, no issues. Yeah. 5 years. No, for me, in that way, God is kind to me. For me, last 5 years, I was always invested in this process. Mains అవుతూ ఉండేది కదా ప్రతిసారి, ప్రిలిమ్స్ అవుతూ ఉండేది. మెయిన్స్ రాసే టైంకి ఇంకా ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ 2020లో జనవరిలో నాకు అవ్వలేదు మెయిన్స్. సో మేలో ప్రిలిమ్స్ ఉందన్నమాట. ఐ హ్యావ్ 4 months. కోవిడ్ వచ్చింది. సో దట్ వెంట్ అక్టోబర్, 9 months వచ్చిందనమాట. సో ఈ ప్రాసెస్లో ఐ ప్రిపేర్డ్ మై నోట్స్. ఫస్ట్ టైం ఫర్ మై ఫస్ట్ అటెంప్ట్ ఐ హ్యాడ్ నో నోట్స్ విత్ మీ. That was the most crude attempt that I have ever given. So ఆ 9 months రావడం వల్ల నోట్స్ చేసుకున్నాను, టెస్ట్ సిరీస్ చూసుకున్నామని చూసుకున్నా. సెకండ్ అటెంప్ట్ కూడా మళ్ళీ పోయిందనమాట. సో మేము అక్టోబర్ రాశాను, మళ్ళీ మెయిన్స్ మోడ్లో. ఐ వాస్ ఆల్వేస్ ఇన్ మెయిన్స్ మోడ్ రాదర్ దన్ బీయింగ్ ఇన్ ప్రిలిమ్స్ మోడ్. ఐ వాస్ ఇన్ మెయిన్స్ మోడ్. అగైన్ ఐ మేడ్ నోట్స్. ఐ వాస్ రెడీ ఫర్ సెకండ్ టైం మెయిన్స్. బట్ మెయిన్స్ అయ్యే టైంకి 1 month రిలాక్స్ అయినా, మెయిన్స్ తర్వాత 1 month రిలాక్స్ అయినా కూడా రిజల్ట్స్ వచ్చే టైంకి అగైన్ ఐ గాట్ ఫెయిల్డ్. అగైన్ సెకండ్ వేవ్ కేమ్. Again 9 months, again I sat on doing my optional. Then I didn't focus on my optional for the second attempt. So third attempt I thought I should make optional proper thing, refer standard notes, everything. So prelims always 1-2 months for me. I used to prepare only for 1-2 because the first attempt for prelims have made solid notes. For example, maps kani, like facts kani, some like for polity had only Lakshmikant. Minimal resources for each and everything. And my strategies was mostly test series for prelims. So it was just 45 days to 50 days affair for me for prelims. Most of my preparation was in that mains mode. So in the third attempt, again I started investing myself in test series, mains test series. So కూర్చొని చదవడం కంటే కూడా టెస్ట్ ఎక్కువ రాసేవాడిని. దట్ యూస్ టు ఎగ్జైట్ మీ, ఆర్ ఎల్స్ ఐ వుడ్ బి డిమోటివేటెడ్ డూయింగ్ జస్ట్ రీడింగ్ ఆల్ డే. దట్స్ ఇట్.